have all of you here, but also everybody watching online as well. You can see the cameras around the room. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Lindsay Vickers, and I'll be your host for this morning's session. So whether you're joining us online or in person, you are not going to miss out on a thing, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail momentarily. So FANUC have gathered an impressive lineup of 37 exhibitors showcasing the latest in machine tools, injection moulding, robotics, automation, and so much more this week. So later on, we will be taking you on a virtual tour around the whole event. The MTD C&C team will be showcasing so much of this exhibition, and there's so much to offer, including world skills. So the exciting World Skills Industrial Robotics National Finals are happening, where talented competitors are vying for a chance to compete and represent the UK in Shanghai in 2026. It's very inspirational. So if you do get a chance, head on upstairs. It's on the mezzanine section, and all the competitors would welcome you. Be sure to explore FANUC's innovations, including downstairs their cutting-edge robo-shots, robo-drills, and the robo-cut. And they've also got this meet the service engineers, where you can learn about their comprehensive after-sales support. So for all of our virtual attendees, you can stream this live on FANUC Europe's LinkedIn, also on FANUC UK Open House website, and MTD C&C's YouTube channel, where we've got about 144, I think I got it wrong yesterday, it was 144,000 subscribers. So a quick heads up, which will make everybody smile if you've not visited and it's your first day. Lunch is happening at 12:30. I always get smiles. I've got some smiles around the room. Throughout the morning, we're going to have some insightful talks and panel discussions. I say it every year, but it's my favourite bit of the whole event. They are thought-provoking, and it's a real chance for all of you watching online or in person. Please get involved. And I said it yesterday and I'll say it again. Someone asked Tom a question yesterday, the day before, and he answered it by turning it round to say, what is it that you want us to do at FANUC? Because we're listening, and this is that perfect event for you to get involved in. And it's been really interactive, and we had a lot of comments coming in from online as well. So please, if you do want to ask any questions, just pop your hand up. I've got a microphone, and if you are online, the message comes through to my phone, so I can ask the panel as well. So. And if there is anything that you feel like you've missed out on from previous days, you can go back and watch the live stream. Okay, enough from myself. Let's welcome onto the stage the Managing Director of FANUC UK, Tom Buer.
Thanks, Lindsay. Oh, good morning, everybody. I have to do this every year. Come on, we need to build a bit of excitement. As Lindsay said, we need to get the questions. We need to get you involved in it. So good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's better. On behalf of FANUC UK, welcome to our 2024 Open Show. It really is our pleasure to have you here today. And I'm glad and grateful that you've all taken time out of your busy diaries and to come and attend the show. My team here and our team, our collaborators are really interested in delivering not just products, but solutions that make a difference to our end users. We're in the business of providing solutions. The products are products. We need to fix what's going on. From the very beginning, our mission has been about quality, sustainability, and innovation in everything that we make. It really is at the heart of FANUC and FANUC UK. If you've attended one of these shows before, you know we've had to do it slightly differently this year. We've moved this up here from the training room. We've moved the displays into the training room. It's for the very good reason that we're too busy out on the shop floor that I couldn't give up space this year, which is a great problem to have, but we also know we've got much further to go as a UK PLC. We need to move it forward. We're really proud of the relationships that we've built with our partners that are here today. And I'd like to thank them, because there's quite a few of them in the room here today. So thank you for what you've done, what you bring to our open house. A lot of them, well, they're all listed on the board over there. Familiarise yourself if you want to go out. And a lot of the quotes that I'll be using here are on the board here as well. I'm using a lot of stuff from the MTA, BARA, the MTC, Make UK, Automate UK, Made in the Midlands, the West Midlands, robotic autonomous systems cluster. We need to look at that word, mate. It's just not easy to get out. And they're all here, they're all partaking, and they're all part of the solution. We're only going to fix this collectively. We're not going to fix it individually. We need to fix it with the academic institutions, with government, local and national, with the OEMs, with the manufacturers, because we've all got different perspectives on it. We need to pull everybody together to make sure that we answer the questions. The West Midlands Robotic Autonomous Systems Cluster is a group of industry, academic institutions and local authorities. And it really is important because this M6 corridor is vital to manufacturing in this country. Around the world, the robotics and automation clusters really have been successful in the places where they've been developed. They're driving technological advancements, boosting productivity and creating new opportunities that we didn't know about, that everybody needs to find. I think one of the apprentices that were here yesterday was saying, like, the amount of jobs that they asked her where she thought she was going to be in 10 years' time. And her answer was really good, that she didn't think that job that she was going to have in 10 years' time existed yet. And it was a great answer. And it's true. So we really need to keep an eye on what's going on. Automation does come with some challenges, and we need to address those workforce impacts and ethical considerations as well. So we can't just think it's all good. There is areas that we've got to answer as well. I think anybody that works for a robot company has had it thrown at them so many times about taking jobs. Not true, but we need to answer it. We need to get those answers out there. These clusters are very likely to shape the future of work and industry in very profound ways. Increased productivity. I mean, the regions which companies and research institutes work together have really led to significant improvements in productivity, and we all know that UK productivity does need to be addressed. Job creation. Robots and automation does displace tasks. It doesn't displace jobs. It creates new jobs for the ones that have been displaced. And it creates higher paying, more satisfying jobs. It creates jobs in AI, robot design, tech, engineering, maintenance services. Automation clusters fosters that growth in the specialised labour markets. And it attracts investment. It brings investment to the regions and the cities that have it, which then further improve the situation going on, increase productivity, economic growth. All of these are important. I'm definitely not going to mention anything political here today because I keep getting in trouble, so we're going to leave it. We've got to be positive about the new government. The new government is announcing a lot of strategies. It's coming up with strategies. And we need to give them the chance to work. But what we need is you guys, us guys, everybody in this room, engaging with them to make sure we drive their strategy into the areas that it's needed. The position the government has inherited is we've slipped to 13th in the manufacturing league table. We were really positive last year, I think, that we'd gone to 8th, and somehow we've dropped to 13th. There's a huge amount of reasons for this, political reasons, Brexit reasons, Labour reasons, all sorts of reasons. But the ones that we can address, the ones that we're able to try and fix in here, are the ones to do with the lack of take-up in automation, the low productivity. We can address that. We can fix that in here. The MTA and Oxford Economics done a recent report, and it showed that the way manufacturing is traditionally measured is 8% of GDP and 7% of employment in the UK. If you take in the indirect impact as per their supply chain, us, everybody that's involved in it, it grows to 15% of GDP and 14% of employment. If you take the induced factor, which is then what everybody else spends within it, it works out at 23% of GDP. I mean, it's too big a number not to really take seriously. If we can't take 23% of GDP as a serious proposition, I don't know what we're going to do. The first measure, the 8%, shows it's approximately 184 billion, and you'll have to excuse me, I've got these written down because I'm going to forget everything if I don't. And the last wage, the 23%, is 518 billion of GDP. I mean, it's massive. I don't think manufacturing and the supply chain to manufacturing gets the recognition it deserves on the 8%. So the 23%, we're way off. We really need to change the perception of it. And people like the ones that were here yesterday that are coming into engineering are the people that are going to change that. We need to get the perception of the dull, dirty, dangerous out of the way. Engineers, there's so many roles within manufacturing, within engineering that have fantastic careers. And we really need to get rid of the Victorian attitude towards manufacturing or engineering. You know, it's not, I can't remember the last time I sent anybody up to clean my chimney. It doesn't happen. You know, we're in a new age. We really got to embrace what's going on. I know automation, being FANUC, I know automation is a lot more than robots, but I'm going to quote some robot numbers because they're a lot easier to get together from the IFR because other areas have so many variations, it's hard to get the numbers. But robot numbers are indicative of the whole automation situation in the UK. In post-Brexit, since Brexit, the industrial robot installations in the UK have gone up to about 2,500 units a year. Good? Bad? Anybody got any opinions on it? No? I'll tell you it's bad. It's less than 1/10 of Germany's sales. So for every one of those robots we're selling, Germany are selling 10. We really need to address it because the German worker is now, because of the tools we've given them, not because of the workforce, is about 30% more efficient in what they're able to produce. We have to close that gap. We have to. It's the only way we're going to get it. I chose Germany not because it was great in the world, it's third in the world, but I chose it because of its European location, because we can get to that same situation as Germany. If we want to become a manufacturing powerhouse, we have to do it. The top few in the UK is the Republic of Korea has 1,012 robots per 10,000 employees. Singapore has 730 units per 10,000 employees. Germany has 415 robots per 10,000 employees. The worldwide average, including a lot of countries that you wouldn't think were traditionally strong manufacturers, has 151 robots. That's the worldwide average. The UK has 111. We're way behind the worldwide average. We need to get this average up. We need to produce. And the only way we're going to produce is we can't put this automation genie back in the bottle. We have to use automation to get there. To do that, people like me, people in this room, need to make sure people know the advantages of new automation, what it can bring. We need to make sure they know what technology is available. You know, a lot of people don't know what is available now. So shows like this can let people know what's available. We need to let people know what today's technology can do. A lot of decision makers might still think some of the automation is based on their 20 or 30 year ago dip into automation, and that's where they their knowledge of automation might have stopped in 1980 or something. So we need to make sure we let people know what it is. We need to upskill to take advantage of it. I think everything I've heard so far is about upskilling. But what we need to make people aware of is upskilling isn't getting from no knowledge to genius level. It's move everybody up one step. It's not difficult. You know, if we keep move everybody up one step, we fix all the problems. We have everything in this country. We have fantastic inventors, fantastic engineers, a fantastic workforce. Let's just skill everybody up one level. It's not difficult. You know, if you think you need to become tomorrow's Elon Musk, that's not possible. Let's just go one step. Let's try and get it as one thing at a time. We need to get so people understand the return on investments. I think we've been really poor on that in the UK. I think people understand the cost of automation, but they don't understand the return on investment. And we need to make sure return on investment, lifetime running costs, all the decisions that the checkbook holders need is available to them, because they can't make the decision unless we give them that information. We need to understand all aspects of automation. It's more than just, you know, something that you put in your production line. It's all the data-driven stuff that you can use in today's technology that you need is what it can do. We got some fantastic speakers here today. We've had them all week, but we've got some fantastic people here today. We've got FANUC Europe, we've got the MTC, Make UK, Automate UK, and the West Midlands Robotic Autonomous Systems Cluster are all doing it here today. So I really would invite you, if you can, please stay up here for as long as you can. This finishes before lunch. If you need to dip down, if you need to go out, we have a coffee break, but please try and come back up, because this only works if you engage. Us preaching about what it needs is pointless. We need to understand what people need, because then we can work on it. We can drive these changes going forward. And the people that are here this morning are definitely some of the people who can drive the change that's needed. One last thing before I get off. I think I'm probably running over time here now. But we've been supporting a charity here this week. So all of our system partners that have come in have given some money to be here this week. That money isn't going to FANUC UK. We had the really unfortunate need to use the air ambulance, the West Midlands Air Ambulance here last year. And it's a charity that's now very close to our hearts. So that money is going directly to the West Midlands Air Ambulance. So thank you to all of the people that are here for contributing to that. Thank you very much. We're really proud to share our story with you. We look forward to continuing to grow together. We've got an incredible UK manufacturing and engineering community, so let's really keep on growing that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so collaboration and partnerships have been a key topic at this event, and we have none other than the top person at FANUC Europe to give his take on why and how the partnerships that are created, strengthened and developed within the automation industry are so important. So please welcome onto the stage Marco Girardello, FANUC Europe CEO.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. Tom, you're very professional with the notes, so I don't have anything. So as Italian, I will speak by my heart. So it will also take 1 hour, but I will try to shorten out a little bit. So one very good question, that is the one that we always answer. What do you want from us? And this is the question that every partner has to put. And we as FANUC, we are acting, and we want to be your partner, especially in such a challenging time and economy like in the last period. So first of all, just a couple of institutional slides about who is FANUC. So you know very well, we are a Japanese company. We produce CNC robots and some special robot machine like the RoboDrill. We have a huge installation of these all over the world. And our production, our monthly production is pretty high. But we produce what the market needs. So what do you need from us? You tell us. All the products that we have developed and we continue to develop are listening the needs of the market, listening the needs of our customers. We will never be the first one developing something, never. Because we will just listen you and then we will develop what you need. This has been the secret for us in the last years, and we will continue in that way, because this is how a partner needs to act. So we are not imposing something, we are responding to your needs. And talking about that, how are the currently challenges? How is the market going on? So we know very well, after the COVID, we got a very good rebound in general in terms of economy in the last years. But already in 2024, we start to see some slowdown in all the markets. Machine tools, automation, robotics, whatever it is. I always like, and I always try to have also my colleagues looking ahead. As a Japanese company, we are very good also to work to check a lot the data in the past. We analyze a lot, but I always try to make the challenge. Let's look a little bit ahead. So of course, here you see some outlook from the institutional association like Sesimo, so for the machine tool builders. They see very good indication for the next year. They say a +9% compared to the last quarter of this year. Is going to be true or not? However, it's something that we need to take into consideration. We know very well the economy is a cycle. Now we are the top, we are the bottom. We don't know how much it lasts, but sooner or later it's going to get back there. And this is where we need to be ready. Robotics Association, IFR, is giving similar indication. A bit more conservative. They're talking about a 3% growth per year. And they're saying that we will be back to the same level of units sold 2 years ago, only in 2027. Once again, this is just an outlook, but it allows us to understand how the market can be in the next months. About the UK automation trends, I think you spoke a lot in these days. So these are more or less the same data that Tom and you've discussed during the last days. Very good, improving, but a lot of chance for growing. That is good. This means that the potential that you have here in terms of automation is much higher than the other European countries. You have, however, a very good expertise, very good knowledge. It's just the issue how to get this more inside the factories. And in this respect, what we are always trying to do as FANUC, once again as a partner, we try to connect the reality, the trends, and the challenges of the market with solutions that we can give to you, and you can also apply into your factories. First of all, which are the current trends and challenges of the market? You know very well, are these fourth ones. So lack of skilled workers, energy cost, digitalization, and reshoring. After the global shortage for supply chain, it's been understood that maybe something is better that we keep it close to us, because it's not sure. I mean, nobody wants to be in the same situation of 2021, but everybody, and we also as FANUC, are thinking once it could happen that we were not able to deliver the products that were needed or the solution that were needed, but the second time it cannot happen. So everybody's thinking how to avoid to have a similar situation or to get in a similar problem. That's why the reshoring of the production in Europe is also getting in that level. So going one by one, so lack of skilled workers. This is a generational change. The expertise on the machining or in the automation, they are step by step leaving the companies. It's not easy to get other people on board, and the ones that we have are not in the same number that in the past. And this could somehow affect also the competitiveness of the companies, of the factories, because if you do not have enough experts, how can you be competitive in the market? So the solution that we have in this respect, and we are trying to propose to the market, is of course try to get the new talent attracted by the automation. In the past, automation was just a dirty job. It was just something that you get back black, your face after a long day. Now we are trying to assess this through our training center all around Europe, working together with WorldSkills, also having our internal events for the young guys to let them understand that the automation is an exciting job. You have a lot of new products every year. You are a mechatronics, you are mechanical, electronic, and also software developer at the same time. Plus, in a such challenging period, is one of the most secure job that you can have. Sometimes we look at these guys, I cannot mention because it's not nice, so software company, logistic company, they're growing, wonderful buildings, but then they suddenly cut thousands of people. Thousands. That's not happening here. That's not happening in automation. We continue growing because this is the needs of the world. And in fact, we have a lack of people. All our customers are in the same situation. I cannot find a technician doing that. I cannot find an engineer doing this. This is because in the past was not attractive, and we are trying to let the people understand that this attractive is very interesting and is also secure. For the factories, however, given the fact that the people are less than in the past, we are trying to deliver solutions. First of all, easy to use product. We cannot back to the very difficult programming that it was there when I started. Now it is to be like an iPhone. So even with a very easy training, you have to do even more complex things. And this is how we are developing our product now, and we are delivering also to the market itself. We are also trying to combine, and this is also thanks to our partners, more automation. So machine working as much as possible, solution working as much as possible by themselves. Why? Because I can take that clever guy from the production and maybe put in the engineering or in an R&D of my factories. So try to use as much as possible the mind of the people rather than the arms of the people. The collaborative robots. These are the chance also to reduce the workload on the people in the production, and once again, instead to have them maybe assembling something, having them making the quality check, since the robot is making the hardest part. Energy cost, up and down, increasing, decreasing. Sustainability is something that is getting more and more requested, even by law, at the companies. You know very well in 2026, all of us, we need to provide a clear scores in terms of sustainability, in terms of energy saving, and these can also drive majority of the investment. So as a solution, what we continue to do, or what we have done, is to deliver products or to develop products that can allow a reduction of the energy that is going to be consumed in the factories. And we are applying AI, so artificial intelligent solution in our products. And this is incredible because these are function. Our AI function are in our products almost since 8 years. Now everybody's talking about AI. And then when I start to see things, I say, but okay, guys, but we have since 8 years. But you know what? We're Japanese. Usually, we are not making this so much aware in the market, but this is for us. The chance that the machine can reprogramming accordingly to the targets that you are giving, that can reduce the consumption accordingly to the target you are giving. For us, it's standard. It's there. You just need to know that we have it and use it and applying, because this can also give the biggest advantage. And then all the IoT solution, these come at the end, so you can have a complete monitoring of the situation. So this is something that can really allow you to save and to improve the energy cost. Digitalization. This is the most complex one. You know why? Because it's not enough that you install a wonderful software system, a wonderful supervisor. You need to replan, reorganize the production in order to be digitalized. Sometimes the people are just thinking, oh, I just put something to supervise and they keep the same production process that I had it before. No, you need to reconsider that. You need to reproject this to become more efficient, to become more competitive, and then to allow this to be properly digitalized. Of course, it's a challenge, but it's also a very good opportunity, because it can also allow you to be more effective. And in this respect, we are providing solution as a digital twin that can allow you to test the things before they are put in production, or they can allow you to monitor after they are in production. Or we are also getting over and over. So we have a solution for the remote service. So now in most of the cases, this was pretty developed during the COVID period. We can also solve the problem without go to the customer. We can provide them solution without being there. Of course, if we need to replace a motor, we must go there. But some of the problems, sometimes they can solve remotely. We also have predictive software that can allow you to understand before a problem is coming that you have some issues on your product. So that at the first maintenance, program maintenance that you have, you can go and check and say, oh, this was the problem, so I fix it now, and you do not have any down production. It can also allow this kind of solution to support you and say, you are stressing too much the axis number 2 because of the programming, so you can reprogram that part. You see the stress going down, and the reliability goes up, and no downtime. And these things are not new, these are tested. And an automotive American company that I cannot mention has installed these 10 years ago, and every year is saving from downtime that are not having $20 million. Of course, it was not in spare parts on the robot. It was all the downtime, or all the issues that they can have in terms of production. 20 million per year. So this one, it's also proved. You just need to apply, you just need to consider where this is. And once again, this is improving the competitiveness. Bring back manufacturing to the UK. So this is also related to reshoring. The solution that I've seen here, but the solution that I know that the majority of the partners are developing here in UK are pretty in line with the request also of this market. Easy solution, plug-and-play solution with a very wide range of application, from small parts to most complex systems. So the range of solutions that can be provided today by the partners in UK to the market are large, and this is also something that we're already seeing. It's already getting more competitiveness and also better results. That's it. So I try to short up as much as possible, but mainly, once again, even this last part that I was providing to you want to be an explanation about how we try to act as a partners. So once again, we are not just a supplier. Yes, we develop products, but we do it accordingly to your request, to your needs, and then we try also to address the solution and to develop the solution accordingly to the market needs, to allow them, once again, to be more competitive in a challenging market and period like this one. That's all. Any question? Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next up, partnerships. Mike Wilson, he's the Chief Automation Officer at the MTC. Now, he's stood on this stage many times before at FANUC each year, so it'll be good to hear from him, but also his perspective on what's changed and what's evolved over the years. So thank you, everyone. Mike Wilson.
Good morning. I'm here to talk really about partnerships and how that can help drive much greater adoption in UK industries. I want to start though just by setting the scene, and I know Tom's already talked about some of this, but I've got some of it in graphical form, so hopefully you'll get a clue as to the data. So the first point really is our productivity. We are about 30% behind where we should be if we'd have followed the trend prior to the financial crash. Our productivity is pretty much flatlined since the financial crash, and we need to do something about that. Copenhagen Business School did a study a few years ago now, looking that if we applied automation to the same level as the most automated countries in Europe, so not doing better than them, just doing the same as them, that would improve our productivity by over 22%. Now, that in itself doesn't close the entire gap, but it gets us much closer to where we need to be. And when you think about it, we're reasonably competitive today, despite our productivity being behind. if we were 22% better, just think how successful we could actually be. Talking about robots, autonomous systems, technologies, various government reports have looked at the potential benefits of these technologies. So the Made Smarter review back in 2017 identified that it could be worth 180 plus billion to the UK economy over a 10-year period. Much more recently, looking across a whole range of other sectors, the government identified it could be worth, again, more than 150 billion to the UK economy. These numbers are enormous. Now, you can't add the two together, but because there is some overlap, but if you do a bit of analysis, it's worth more than 250 billion to the UK economy, just by adopting the technologies that are available today. And as Tom's already said, we're behind where we need to be. This is the International Federation of Robotics density data. We are behind the world average. Given that we're the 12th, 13th largest manufacturing country in the world, we should be somewhere in the middle of that table, just to be maintaining our position. And there are other potential challenges and benefits. Make UK currently forecast, or currently state, that there's over 60,000 vacancies in UK manufacturing today. And if we had those vacancies filled, maybe by robots rather than by people, we could be producing an additional £6 billion worth of goods. So it's a lost opportunity there, just by filling the vacancies that we've currently got. And that's just in manufacturing. There are vacancies throughout retail, construction, agriculture, all the way across every industry. And that last point on there is, if we could get our 75% of our SMEs, who are, if you like, lower productivity than the top 25%, if we could get them to increase their productivity to the level of the top 25%, that again could be worth 270 billion to the UK economy. And that came from the Bank of England, and they ought to know what they're talking about. So fundamentally, there's lots of big numbers involved in this, and it is all about just doing what the rest of the world is doing. It's not about doing anything really dramatic. So what is the rest of the world doing? And thanks, Tom, for the introduction on the cluster point, because that is what it's all about. There have been significant clusters created in certain cities and areas in other parts of the world. Currently, the two most famous are Pittsburgh. They've had a very high-profile launch. They've been operating for a number of years. They brought in millions of dollars worth of investment into their local region to develop robot solutions and develop expertise and skills and so on, and they're delivering that to the rest of the US. Odense is probably the original cluster in Denmark, and that was created when they had the demise of the shipyard. The local government in that area decided that they needed to do something, because otherwise all of their businesses were going to suffer. They built a robot cluster which now, it spawned a number of global automation businesses, which I won't mention here because they're competition, but it's done very well. And those businesses, the entrepreneurs that created those businesses, have moved on, and they're now investing in the next generation of businesses. They're generating hundreds of skilled personnel out of their universities by having that kind of focus. And ultimately, we think we need to do something similar in the UK. And we think we need to do it in the West Midlands. And the reason we think it needs to be in the West Midlands is because we have already a whole group of businesses, universities and so on that are already operating in this space. We've got lots of local expertise. So we have MTC across the road, WMG not too far away, and the High Value Manufacturing Catapult there to help develop some of the solutions. We have Birmingham, Warwick, Coventry universities that are developing some of the fundamental technology. We also have some of the headquarters of global robot businesses, including FANUC, in the region. We have some major systems integrators in the region as well, and we also have some major users, not just JLR, but also people like Castings and Mondelez. So that there's an existing pool of resource there in the West Midlands. The problem is it's just not very well joined up. we don't particularly talk to each other. That might sound ridiculous, but we all operate on a national basis. We don't particularly operate locally, so we don't have much in the way of conversations. The other thing I ought to stress is that the West Midlands itself, the combined authority, does also believe in clusters. They've already created a number of clusters in areas where they see significant growth potential for the West Midlands. So things like health tech and med tech, construction, recycling, logistics, and also, very importantly, manufacturing, and particularly the SMEs. So there is significant interest already within the West Midlands in this kind of approach. So we've created the West Midlands Robotics and Autonomous Systems Cluster. I'm only going to say it once because I always call it RAS, which is much easier to say. And we, as in the MTC and the University of Birmingham, founded this group. We did that back in May. We've gained a number of parties who are interested in supporting that, including the combined authority, a number of businesses, including robot businesses, systems integrators, and users, and also other universities. So we built a group who have particular interest in the development of these technologies and the exploitation of these technologies, and they're all based in the West Midlands. And we're now expanding this group. And what we're looking to do is to really change the attitude, the adoption, everything associated with the use of automation throughout the West Midlands. Now, as part of the work, the combined authority actually sponsored a study that's been undertaken by Make UK. This hasn't reported yet, but I'm going to share a couple of the outputs from it. We're getting the full report in a couple of weeks' time, but it was looking at RAS in the West Midlands and the impact of RAS in the West Midlands. One of the key questions they asked, and they did this through a number of surveys, both interviews and also online surveys. So there's qualitative and quantitative data within the outcomes of this. But one of the questions they asked is how many businesses in the West Midlands had already had some involvement with RAS type technologies? And it's actually surprisingly high, as you can see on the chart. And that was a surprise to us as well. But they are qualifying this in terms of this could be very, very low level. This doesn't necessarily mean robots, automation. It could well be small pieces of software. So maybe it's not too much of a surprise. But then one of the key things that they then looked at was what's the size distribution of the manufacturing businesses in the West Midlands. And you probably know that something like 99% of UK manufacturers are all SMEs. And it's a similar kind of picture in the West Midlands. And it's important to understand that because you expect the very large businesses to be very successfully adopting automation, adopting RAS technologies. So JLR, for example, we all know they use lots of this kind of technologies, and that's not a surprise. What really matters is what the majority of businesses are doing. And as you can see there, when we look at how many of the SMEs have actually adopted RAS technologies, it's significantly lower. And that's the target. Those are the businesses that we need to address in terms of helping them adopt more technology and more advanced technologies. So what we're looking to do is to raise the profile of the West Midlands as for high technology businesses, strengthen presence in the RAS sector, build on the foundations that we've already got, and attract other related businesses. We particularly want to encourage startups and spin-outs from the universities because we do have lots of excellent technologies and developments coming out of our universities in the West Midlands, but very few of them actually turn into products or businesses. And we want to find a way of improving that so that we can grow a West Midlands RAS infrastructure. We do recognise that this is exciting technology. Tom already touched on it. We need it to engage and enthuse the younger generations. I can't remember the exact numbers, but the average age in UK manufacturing is over 50. I hate to think what the average age in this room is. It's not too bad actually looking around, but there are too many of us, people like me, that have been around a long time. We need to get the younger generations much more engaged, both in automation, robotics, and also manufacturing. And a lot of them don't want to do the jobs that their parents and their grandparents did. And they're also very aware of technology. They've been brought up with it. You know, I'm quite happy to admit that when I was a youngster, we didn't have mobile phones and we didn't have computers. Didn't exist. Youngsters today, it's just normal to them. So giving them robots to deal with is actually quite usual. It's not a challenge for them. And that's how we're going to get them into our manufacturing facilities, by giving them the technology to use. And we also need to strengthen the skills base. And that's not just about helping getting more of the kids engaged and interested. It's also about reskilling and upskilling. Because as we introduce automation, we need to make sure that the local businesses are upskilling their existing workforces to use their automation. And I'm not going to spend a long time on it. I've got a favourite case study at the moment, which is a business called Walsall Wheelbarrow. Now, they make wheelbarrows, not surprisingly, but they're not in Walsall, they're in Wolverhampton, but just a minor detail. They have an operation that produces 3,000 wheelbarrows a week. They've got 60% of the UK market. They are the only wheelbarrow manufacturer that makes the entire wheelbarrow still in the UK. And a lot of people kind of think, we don't make wheelbarrows anymore, that's kind of basic stuff. Yes, they do. They are a traditional Black Country metal bashing business. They've got 20 robots inside that facility. They're doing welding, they're doing handling to presses, they're doing tube bending, and they're using robot automation to do it. They're all FANUCs as well, by the way. But when they put the robots in, they upskilled their existing workers, particularly the apprentices. They gave them the responsibility for the automation, and they operate all these machines. They didn't make anybody redundant. They can operate the facility, or some of it, lights out. And when the pandemic came, they did very, very well. Partly because we're all at home and we want to buy wheelbarrows for doing our gardens and things, but also partly because they could flex their production very quickly to make more product, whereas people trying to bring things in from overseas couldn't do that. And to me, that's a great case study of a business that's done it and done it very successfully. And I look at them and I talk about them because I kind of work on the principle that if Black Country businesses making wheelbarrows can do it, then everybody else can do it as well. Ultimately, it's about raising competitiveness and productivity in the West Midlands, helping us to grow businesses and create highly skilled, well-paid employment. And that's what the RAS cluster is all about. We're trying to drive the West Midlands forward with all the relevant people in the West Midlands to get more engagement with businesses, get them using more of this technology so that we do make the West Midlands more productive, more successful going forward. I just want to finish up with one quote. The problem for the UK labour market and our economy is not that we have too many robots in the workplace, but that we have too few. Now, the real importance of that quote for me, is that's out of a government paper in 2019. It's actually the very first line of the summary of that paper, so it's right up front. And that study was called Automation and the Future of Work. Now, I'm not counting chickens and I can't sort of claim any, that it'll lead to anything, but the chair of that committee, when that report was written, was Rachel Reeves. And I hope she still remembers that report and that comment, because it would be good to get government support for what we're trying to do. Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Just so you know, we're going to take, thank you, Mike, thank you very much. We are going to take a short break, and then after the break, we're going to be discussing changing culture and policy to drive greater robot adoption in the UK. Please feel free to take a break. We're going to be streaming online back in about 10 minutes or so. So feel free to take a break and then come back upstairs and we'll continue the seminars. Thank you very much. Okay, hello everybody and welcome back. Day 3 of FANUC's Open House 2024. We're going to continue now, and it's coming up to one of the most exciting parts of the seminars, which is the panel discussions. It's happening a little bit later on, but throughout the whole event, the reason we do this is so you can all get involved and ask the questions that you want answers to. So if you are watching online, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you would like to ask any questions, feel free to message in. Those comments will come straight through to my phone, and then I can ask the speaker on stage. So when the speaker's talking, of course, you can ask the questions throughout, and we'll get those up onto the stage. Right, so next up is a talk on changing culture and policy to drive greater robot adoption in the UK. Peter Williamson, the CEO of Automate UK, chair of the Affiliate Partner Board at Make UK. We've heard a lot about culture this week, and Peter is going to provide his thoughts on how trade organisations and the industry as a whole can support in guiding a change in culture that can support growth in automation adoption. Please welcome on to the stage, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for the introduction. Thanks also for FANUC for putting on this event. I think it's a great opportunity to have the sort of conversations that we're having now and really look at how automation can be such an important part for the future of our economy. I did have an intro slide, but I can skip that one as I've already had the introduction, but which is very good. So. Unfortunately, there's a few slides that I need to go through just to set the scene as to where we are in the UK. And part of me thinks that the main reason why we should be better at adopting automation in the UK is so that I don't have to keep going through these slides and saying how bad we are at it up until this point. So it's unfortunately not the most positive scene, but obviously there's a huge opportunity for improvement and development. So one of the things that Automate UK and BARA do is to gather statistics of robot sales in the UK. And we actually had seen over the last 2 or 3 years a fairly steady increase in robot adoption in the UK, which was a real positive. 2024, for probably numerous reasons. We've had an election. I think the impending budget maybe saw a little bit of a delay in decision making and investment within sort of capital equipment, but we've certainly seen that the first 3 quarters of 2024 haven't been quite as positive as the 3 years preceding. That is in contrast to maybe operational stock of robots globally, where we're seeing an increase, and there is obviously this issue where the gap between the amount of robots that are being installed globally and the amount of robots that are being installed in the UK is continuing to widen. That is clearly an issue in terms of our ability to continue to compete globally with other manufacturers. We are expecting to see that trend continue. This data, by the way, is from the IFR. We are expecting to see that trend continue over the next sort of 2 to 3 years. Continued heavy investment in robotics and automation, largely driven by skills and labour shortages. Unfortunately, I'm going to drag this slide out again, and I know it's been on the previous 2 presentations, but it's a really important one to kind of continue to really reinforce where we are and where we sit globally. As you can see, there's many less industrialised nations that sit far ahead of us as adopters of robotics and automation. The UK languishes in 23rd, well below the international average. And the disparity is, as Mike said earlier, we're 23rd in the world in terms of robot adoption. But in terms of industrialised nation and the manufacturing output, we're currently 12th in the world. So there seems to be a massive disparity. And there's several reasons for that in terms of the culture that we have in this country and have had historically. A reliance on low-cost labour rather than a reliance on investment in manufacturing plant is one of the key ones. So obviously, again, as Mike said, we should be seeing ourselves somewhere in the middle of that first slide rather than halfway down the second slide, and really drive ourselves forward as a more efficient and more productive nation. Now, there is some good news in that there is a reasonable, significant level of investment in general automation in the UK. As part of our association, we represent manufacturers of processing and packaging machinery, particularly in the food and pharmaceutical industry. And clearly in that kind of world where you've got high volume, high output, the need to automate and the desire to automate and the justification for it has been historically much higher. So processing and packaging machinery has been a very, and food and pharmaceutical has been a well automated industry, but not necessarily historically with robotics. So we're seeing that over 70% of manufacturers, and this data is from information compiled by Make UK in a survey in 2023. So over 70% of manufacturers have invested in some form of automation. But most of that is around traditional automation, CNC, PLCs, even as basic as perhaps conveyoring and product movement. But robotics are technologies that is the third highest technology and accounts for about 42% of the types of automation that people have invested in. In terms of taking it to the next level, into AI, AR, virtual reality, only 20% or less of manufacturers are starting to consider that technology as being something that they can use within their manufacturing processes. In terms of where the automation is being used, it is by some way in manufacturing processes. We are starting to see an increase in more sort of logistics industries. We're starting to see an increase in even in kind of back office tasks and improvements in terms of automating digital processes, automating training, that kind of area, which is non-physical automation. There are, however, still in the UK, many perceived barriers to automation, and this is clearly part of our role in this room, our role as an association, to try and start to break down some of those barriers so people think differently about where and how automation can be used. The biggest perceived barrier is there's a lack of technical skills, lack of skills to specify automation, a lack of skills to actually integrate and implement automation, and also a lack of skills within end user businesses just to maintain and look after and keep that automation equipment operational. There are still challenges around integration and data and how we use the data to effectively provide information back to the automation equipment so that it is used as effectively and efficiently as possible. There's still a perception that there's a high cost to automation. Now, clearly, some automation is still expensive and is of a higher level of investment, but that is changing and evolving. There are much more opportunities for entry-level type automation where people can start to get some experience, get some knowledge, and understand what the market is all about before then investing greater and greater automation. And then there's some cultural challenges and workforce challenges, which I'll go into in a bit more detail. Now, obviously, against those barriers, there are also many businesses that understand and see the benefits that automation provides. Clearly, the usual ones that you would expect around increased productivity, increased efficiency, improved quality, and obviously more effective use of resources. So there's glimmers of light there. There are people that understand that the benefits to automation are strong and will really support their increase in productivity and growth as a business. But there are still challenges that need to be overcome culturally. So we're at a bit of a unique moment in time in the UK in that almost like a generational opportunity. I know Tom earlier said that he didn't want to get too political, but I think in my position and what we are as an association, we need to at least start thinking that way a little bit. And clearly, we've got an opportunity with this new government that we've had change. We've had a long period of time of a government that wasn't particularly focused on manufacturing or engineering, that wasn't particularly focused on the opportunities that would bring to the UK economy. And we're very confident that the new government is thinking much more about how to have sustainable growth, how to create greater productivity. And for the first time in a very long time, there is an industrial strategy. I'll get onto that in a bit more detail later on. The good news as well is that the government, whilst looking at this industrial strategy, are very keen to consult with industry and actually to get input from industry. I think for too long, industry hasn't had a strong voice in terms of policy. It's happened to them rather than for them. And it has been driven a lot by politicians and not necessarily people with the experience and the knowledge that people in this room and people watching online have. So we've got this opportunity where we really need to use the voice that we've got and speak to government and try and encourage them to create policy and to help us adopt a culture that will allow for far greater adoption of automation. The other thing that's fairly unique at the moment is when we talk about workforce culture, there is still the perception that robots take jobs. I know it was mentioned earlier, and clearly we see no evidence for that. In fact, there's a greater chance of it securing jobs, securing productivity, securing competitiveness so that businesses can continue to operate in the UK and grow and thrive and develop. That in itself creates more job opportunity. Now, we fully understand that those job roles will evolve and change, and that some of the skills that have been required historically are maybe going to not be quite the same, and that people need to have a flexibility and be able to be upskilled within the business. But the Labour government maybe has an opportunity to have a voice that some of those traditional dissenters or traditional people that are reluctant to take on automation, such as trade unions, may have a greater chance of accepting a change in culture and a change in attitude from the current government than they certainly would have done from the previous government. There also needs to be a cultural change within the way that we attract and encourage people into manufacturing and engineering careers. I was at a Make UK conference maybe 2 years ago, and someone stood up and said their son had come home from school, and the teacher had basically chastised him for messing around and said, look, if you don't stop messing around, you'll just end up working in the factory. It's a terrible phrase, because actually engineering and manufacturing can be an incredibly fulfilling career, and the way that automation can evolve and change manufacturing and engineering roles should be really something that teachers should be in school saying, there's a great opportunity for you here. You can have a really interesting and exciting job if you go into that environment. Some comparisons were made earlier to Germany. In Germany, an engineer is a profession alongside a doctor, alongside an architect. If you probably talk to the average person in the UK about engineering, they'd think of a car mechanic. You know, the perception is completely different, and we need to shift that culture so people see that engineering and manufacturing has that real high skilled, high potential and high opportunity as a career. And I think in schools, it isn't just that mindset that needs to change. It is the mindset around how we prepare our children for a career in any industry really moving forward. The speed at which technology is evolving means that the skills that you could train change so rapidly that there's a definite need to train a mindset rather than to actually train the skills. Clearly the skills are important, but when someone goes into a career, they need to enter into it with an open mindset of being able to adapt, evolve, accept how technology is going to implement and influence the way in which their jobs move and happen moving forward. I think there needs to be a change of culture and leadership within businesses that invest in automation. I think one of the things that you do hear from employees and their frustrations around the way automation is adopted, sometimes it happens to them and rather than for them. I think if senior leaders and managers within businesses consult with the workforce and understand what the challenges are that the workforce has, how automation can be adopted to support and improve their lot, if you like, how you can make sure that the jobs become more skilled, less of the dull, dirty and dangerous, which again has been mentioned before, then there's probably a greater chance for acceptance of that automation within the workforce. And you then start to help break down some of those barriers, because the workforce, the management are then working together to find the best way for that technology to be adopted. Whilst talking about the management, there needs to be a change in the way that we review investment. I know Oliver's going to talk about that, I think, a bit later on, so I won't get into that too much. But I think also alongside that with banks, at the moment, banks in the UK have a very low risk appetite when it comes to investing in automation. And we feel there needs to be a change in that culture so that banks are more looking at the ability for businesses to repay rather than their ability to secure the finance against an actual asset. If we look at the productivity gains that can happen as a result of automation adoption, clearly businesses should be more productive, should be generating more profit, and should have a greater ability to actually service that loan. I think switching that mindset is a real important thing that the banks, particularly in the UK, need to do. And actually, even when it goes outside of banks, when it comes to private equity, we heard some stories recently of a couple of businesses that were actually considering not being in the UK but being in the US, because the availability of private equity and of angel investors, as they would call them, is they're much more open to risk. They're much more open to opportunity. They're looking at how they can grow and how they can develop. Whereas I think sometimes historically in the UK we're a little bit defensive and a little bit cautious. So as far as Automate UK is concerned, we are an industry association. We represent our members. Our members are manufacturers of automation equipment, providers of automation and robotic solutions. So we've come up with a manifesto for automation where we feel there are certain things that we as an association and our members and our industry should do to improve where we are. But there's also some things that we need to really ask government to do on our behalf. So we've identified some key things within our manifesto, and we've heard it mentioned before, but for us, skills really is very, very central to having a greater adoption of automation. It's one of the main barriers as to why people aren't taking up robotics and automation, and clearly bringing more younger people, more new people into the industry, upskilling existing people is a very, very strong way of improving that. We have a charitable, I won't say we have, there is a charitable organisation that we fund called Automate Best, which invests in supporting members to adopt apprentices and providing bursaries to kind of help make sure that apprenticeship route is an attractive option. We go out into schools. We feel it's important to talk to children at a younger age, maybe sort of years 6, 7, 8, before they get to the point where they're thinking about GCSEs, to start encouraging them to understand what a career in manufacturing and engineering could look like, to see the benefits of it and see how interesting and varied and exciting it can be. But if we don't get to them at that age and we don't help them understand what those opportunities are, they may make certain decisions about the path that their education will take, so they miss the opportunity to get into that. We really want to drive the conversation around technology and automation. We're much more outward thinking, outward facing, and talking to our members, the wider public and government about how we change the conversation so that we debunk those existing myths that exist around automation. We are directly lobbying government. We do that ourselves. We do it as part of our membership to Make UK. And as I said earlier, we've got this unique moment in time where we have a voice, where we have a government that's prepared to listen, and I think we really must make the most of that opportunity. And events like this, where we get our community together and where we bring in people from outside of our community who are looking at maybe how we automate and how we take on this technology, creating as many events as these as we can and creating the environment where open conversations and dialogue happen and have that knowledge transfer and really allow businesses to see what amazing technology and creativity we have in our industry is so important, and getting people together to have those discussions. So I mentioned earlier about an industrial strategy, and we're very pleased to see that there is an industrial strategy. There is currently a green paper around the strategy, which is out for consultation. We are in the process of putting together our response to that, and as are other lobbying associations and institutions. We at Automate UK are quite narrow in our focus, in that we want to see what part automation and robotics plays centrally to that industrial strategy. So we very much believe that a strategy must include a plan for future skills, a clear definition of what advanced manufacturing is. Mike came up with the fantastic story of Walsall Wheelbarrow earlier. Now, clearly, a wheelbarrow, if you define it by what you make, is not advanced manufacturing. It's a fairly simple product. But if you define it in how you make it, then advanced manufacturing is certainly applicable to that business. So no matter how simple seeming the product is, if the processes to manufacture that and produce it are advanced or using advanced technology, that's the definition that we would like to see used within that strategy. And again, focusing on those technologies rather than focusing on particular individual industries. I think historically we've always looked at automotive, aerospace, and kind of called that advanced manufacturing. Well, actually what we need to do is look at the technology of the benefits of the technology and apply that to every single industry where automation could be beneficial. We need a method to deliver cultural change. I was really pleased to hear that the Tony Blair Institute, with Tony Blair and William Hague on stage, actually have put together a robotics, or their thoughts on what the future robotics should look like in the UK. And they were very much talking about the cultural shift, the need to debunk the myths, get away from the fear of robotics taking on jobs, to look at how it can replace the dull, dirty and dangerous, how we can upskill people. To hear it from people like that was incredibly refreshing, because it's a voice that the government will hear. We were pleased to see that the taxation system continues to support full expensing, up to £1 million of investment. That needs to stay in place. We need to continue to make sure that there are tax incentives to invest in automation in manufacturing plant. And we would love to see the government support what we were talking about earlier in terms of finance and breaking down those old-fashioned ways of thinking and actually have a government-backed access to finance scheme. I think with that industrial strategy in place, UK manufacturing, as I think it was Tom mentioned earlier, the MTA report that looks at the overall impact of manufacturing says it's in excess of 20% of the GDP. It's such an important part of our economy, and the benefits of digitalization, automation, AI. It's so important that the government sees that, embraces it, because that can only expand and grow and put us back in the position that we felt, historically we have been as a manufacturing nation. And of course, our other economies, our other industries, which form part of the economy, they clearly stand to benefit from automation. Maybe not physical automation, but digital automation. If you look at the NHS, if you look at some of our service sector, there's an opportunity there where efficiency gains, when coupled with the lack of labour and lack of skills that we have even in those industries, can still help deliver significant transformational growth. There's a few resources there that are I think would be worth reading and looking into. We can circulate these later, but that's it from me. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Cheers.
Everyone seems a bit quiet today. Yesterday, oh, thank you. Peter, if you can go just to the back to change the headset over, that's, thank you. Yeah, everyone seems quite quiet today. The last couple of days, I've been told that we have to wrap up early, but it's really good because what we're doing as well is we're doing a podcast a little bit later on. So after this section of the live stream has been filmed, MTD, CNC, the guys and the team will be taking you on a tour around the exhibition hall, and we'll be doing a podcast. So if anyone else sitting here wants to get involved with the podcast and it's really interactive, then that is absolutely fine. We'd welcome. And also, please, if you're sitting here, this is the chance for you to get involved and be interactive. I said earlier, and I'll say it again, Tom Buer sat on the stage and somebody asked him a question and he turned it around and he said, look, what do you want from us? Don't ask me that question. What is it that you want? Because he was trying to draw out an answer from Tom, and he's like, yeah, we're here, we're listening. We can make that change. So please feel free, if you've got that burning desire to ask a question, then feel free to do so. Okay, so next up, we're going to be talking, and it's one of my favourite bits of the event, is the panel discussion, where it really is a chance for you to get involved. Discussing the adoption of robotics into SMEs, led by the West Midlands Robotics Cluster, and to be chaired by Rachel Eade. Rachel's going to be chairing the panel on understanding how SMEs in particular can adopt robots more easily at a cost that fits their business strategy and with less risk. The panel are also going to cover how they can benefit from the very able supply chain that we have here in the UK. So can we please welcome Rachel on the stage, and we might have a little bit of a shuffle around whilst we do that. So thank you. So, Rachel, feel free, you can introduce yourself, and then I believe you're going to introduce everyone else on the panel.
I'll stand
also.
to the side while
Thank you.
the movements are happening. So, just as a brief introduction while the changes are happening, my name is Rachel Lead from the University of Birmingham, but I'm also a woman with many hats. So I work very closely with Mike, who spoke earlier, and the MT in terms of developing this cluster group, supported ably by the West Midlands Combined Authority so far. And just one little bit of news, hot off the press, that I don't think anybody will have heard. So the West Midlands as a region yesterday was shortlisted as one of the most innovative regions in Europe, which is really, really good news that we get that recognition. And then when I found out this morning, it brings €100,000 to the West Midlands. We don't quite know what that money's for, but trust me, Mike and I are up there saying, come on, give us a little bit of it. So I've worked in the manufacturing, supply chain, transport specifically for the last far too many years, 20 plus years, predominantly helping companies in the supply chain, but with being an advocate of SMEs around growth, development and access to the range of support that is there. Because there is lots of support out there. Most small business owners go, oh, we know about it, but it's too difficult. It's too hard to get. So people like me can actually help you get that help that is there. Some of it's free, some of it comes at a cost, but and I think it's been mentioned a couple of times, where is the expertise? How do we find it and get it? So it is there. So I'm delighted to ask my panel to join us on stage. I'm not going to introduce them because I'm going to ask themselves to do that. Thank you kindly, folks.
Is this your seat?
I don't think I'm going to sit. I wasn't planning on sitting.
Okay.
There is a chair.
That's okay. I'm quite happy to.
Ooh, they're on wheels.
I've got a roving microphone, so just lift your hand and then I'll come over to you.
You're going to get it.
Yeah.
So, I think I've introduced myself. It would be great if everybody very quickly, go down the panel, starting with you, Chris, just who you are and what is your interest in being part of this discussion. One thing to say is all of these folks have kindly volunteered their time, their effort and their expertise and belong to the steering group of West Midlands Mass. We still haven't got that quite right, have we, Mike? So these guys are all on our steering group and advising and helping us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christopher Greeno. I'm Managing Director at CEL Sheet Metal, the best fabricator in the UK. And I'm here with my SME hat on, basically convince me that automation works and then use me as a sort of showcase to see it working in the West Midlands. That's why I'm on this group.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Bartel. I am Group Technology Director at Expert Technologies Group. So Expert Technologies Group are a manufacturer and a system integrator of automated solutions. I define the technology strategy and lead R&D to ensure that our technology products and offerings align with our customer needs and that of industry trends.
Thank you, Mike.
Good morning. Those that were here earlier, you heard from me before, but I'm Mike Wilson. I'm Chief Automation Officer at the MTC. That's my day job. And in that, it's about trying to build partnerships and drive forward the adoption of automation throughout UK industry. And I also jointly lead this group with Rachel. And we're trying to ensure that we can drive the West Midlands forward.
Thanks, Mike. Tom?
My name's Tom Buer. I'm the Managing Director here at FANUC UK. I think I've had the first journey. I've had to come from the office in the corner out here. So it's my pleasure to host everybody here this week, to show you our partners, to show you all the people that are in the supply chain for automation and how we can help it grow. I really am passionate that we grow UK manufacturing. I think it's in everybody's interest. We've discussed this morning how big it is. It can be bigger. It can easily be bigger if what we haven't done so far is catch some of the other countries up. So that's my goal of having you here this week.
Thank you, Tom.
My name's Samantha Reid. I'm Head of Business Operations at Cyberweld Limited. We're a robot systems integrator specialising in welding. It's in the name. Yeah, I've been part of the cluster for the last few months. I joined Cyberweld about 6 months ago now, so probably have a bit of a fresh perspective on all of these things. And my job in the company is to look across the business and see how we can improve our systems and processes, ultimately to provide a better service to our clients.
Thank you, panel. So this session aims to not only introduce you, as I think you've already had some of that introduction from Mike's session before, but hopefully get you on board with what everybody's passion is how can we increase the understanding, A, of manufacturing in the UK and the supply chains and the value add, but also then specifically as a contribution to the economy, productivity, efficiency, increase the understanding, the take-up of robotics and autonomous systems across the whole supply chain. So it is an MTC and University collaboration, but we need these guys and we need all of you and your feedback and your questions to help steer us in how we work with other bodies, link up, coordinate, but also ask for any funds or opportunities to bring that support directly to industry. We're in our early days, but we have developed a vision, terms of reference, recruited a strong group and a steering group, and we held our first sector-based event in conjunction with Warwick Manufacturing a couple of months ago, with more to come next year. Critically, to moving this on, with the combined authority, we convened the research that Mike identified earlier on, and the aim of that was to identify the case for increased RAS adoption across the region and the benefits of. This soon-to-be-released report does make the economic case quite strongly for expanding integration, identifying the significant production and labour market benefits, but also alongside the challenges that are very specific to us in the West Midlands. Also, there's a couple of other reports I shall refer to during the morning. The latest Crow Manufacturing annual quarterly survey provides evidence that there has been a UK big uptick in digitalisation and AI-based technology, Industry 5.0, but there are still hesitancies, particularly around skills, shortages, the increased employment costs announced a couple of weeks ago, that actually are slowing from a big uptick last year, actually beginning to slow down some of that investment. Nervousness is out there in the marketplace, with access to finance remaining a key issue. And I think somebody's just mentioned that around the risk appetite, the access to finance from high streets. That actually, again, is another issue, particularly for SMEs in the market. So let's go to the panel for some discussion around those topics and anything else you'd like to throw in en route. So question one for discussion. So we can see that investment across the region has happened and that there is plans for it to happen. So particularly focus at the two SMEs, either end of the panel. So how did you get started? What were your drivers? But also what were the barriers in your starting the adoption of robotics automation?
So for my business, we're a fabrication, a welding business. We don't currently have automation within the business. I've been with the business 3 months now as the new MD. I'm looking to use AI, which we are adopting very quickly. But really that automation piece, with the increase in the national minimum wage and the national insurance cost for employers, it will push us to look to more automation. What we'd really like to see is that industrial strategy rolled out. So when we do invest, we're investing in the right thing. Some of these investments we make have 5-10 year paybacks. We need to make sure that policy isn't going to change and be thrown out with the dishwater like they do every time they change government. I'd like to see an industrial strategy that's cross-party and that is business-led.
And do you think that if we get an industrial strategy, hopefully early next year, do you think it will filter down and determine SME needs within that?
I think it'd be good if SMEs were actually feeding into the industrial strategy. You look at the industrial strategy and the council they've got, led by Siemens. I can't see that SMEs have a voice within that strategy currently, which is
a shame. And we are waiting for further names on that. Sam, your journey as a company into?
I guess our perspective is a bit different because when we started out the business, started around 1998, Fraser set it up to provide robotic systems, but using used materials. So offering systems at a slightly different price point in the market if you were buying everything brand new. And that specifically is to what was and still is, because it's still a core part of our business, to support the smaller businesses that in their adoption at a different price point than the market was offering. So from our perspective, all of the things that have been talked about today in terms of, government support, but also the skills, understanding, are things that we see every single day working with our partners and our customers, because they're our partners. And I think, we now work across a large scale of different types of businesses. So from really small SMEs up to we're starting to engage with OEMs. And what I'd say is that with the SMEs in particular, throughout the whole of our business, it's how can we train and support them to use it? Because as everyone's mentioned today, there's a huge lack of skills, and people get quite afraid when introducing that technology into their businesses. And at Cyberware, we've even created our own training facility to teach the systems use on our site, so we can bring people in and train them on the technology they're going to be using. We start off in the virtual world, we move into a physical cell, and then we're able to go and train them once the system's installed on their site as well. So it's kind of that three-pronged approach. So they're not left feeling in the lurch once the system's been put in. We can be there to support the staff to adopt it. So it's a really different kind of way of working, and that kind of support is at the heart of everything that we offer and that we see is needed across industry.
Did you develop that approach because you could see the appetite, but also at the same time you could see that fear and resistance?
Absolutely. I was actually talking to our MD about this yesterday. We've stepped away from jobs before where we feel that the business we're about to integrate the system into doesn't feel confident or isn't invested in investing in their staff to help them use that, because all that's going to happen is you have a solution that's put in place that, potentially we've seen it, we've all probably seen it going into factories that's gathering dust somewhere because someone can't use it, and it causes frustrations within the workforce, so it's not quite well adopted. So we've actually stepped away from jobs and said, unless you're prepared to do X, Y, and Z on the training and upskilling, we're not going to put it in because it's not the best solution for the SME. And we're an SME ourselves, so we can relate in that respect.
I think that's really interesting. 2 SMEs are actually giving the same feedback that everybody else this morning has.
Yeah.
So, Dave, as an integrator, how do you see the SME desire, appetite, and again, what the barriers?
I think looking as a system integrator, we have to change as well. We have to change our approach to how we deal with SMEs and OEMs to some extent. I think traditionally businesses like Expert, we were RFQ responders. We waited for the client to come give us an RFQ. The famous phrase, if we got the price wrong, we won the contract. The race to the bottom, and we all ran for the hills. I think, business is changing. The desire for automation is changing, and we try to, I want to say the bad with the consultancy piece up front, so we work with the client, work with the SME to understand what their needs and their wants are. So not getting the right in RFQ, not getting the right statement requirements, but give us a problem statement. What do you want to do? So then we can tailor our solution then to be scalable, to be flexible. So we've got systems available to us that allow you to go from proof of concept, proof of principle, through to full-scale automation in a completely sustainable way that allows you to keep the thing you started with. So and I can't just emphasise in some of the things that were said on the presentation beforehand. There's the immediate thought, isn't the return on investment is only replacing people. Absolutely. If your only incentive to automate is replacing people, it will never ever be a success.
But a business should be about productivity, efficiency, growth anyway, not just
absolutely. So efficiency, quality, and I think again it was said, if you get automation right, your headcount's going to increase, and it's going to increase in higher skilled jobs,
which actually contributes in a different way back to the economy.
Absolutely, and I think to close that off for us, traditionally when we've delivered an automated solution, we've left. And the support's been, we're kind of looking for service contracts, servitization, looking at the whole digital piece, the predictive analytics, but also then saying, what's the next job? Where are we going on the next journey? Doing automation strategies. I've got a short, a medium, and long-term strategy for the client. So we're all bought in at an early stage in understanding what the outcome is. And I guess taking it back to the beginning as well. I think we can't get rid of the fact that there is funding barriers. Automation can be any cost we want it to be. It can be low cost. It can be tens of hundreds of millions of pounds. Yeah, But for a startup, robot as a service is something. It's starting to get real kind of appetite.
Let's just hold that thought on finance. That's a separate discussion point. So, Mike, just leading on in terms of the inquiries and obviously the expertise you have at the MTC, sorry, the MTC and some of the programs that you work on across the region, are you still seeing a demand led for help? We know we need to do something, but we don't know what, and to come up with that scope. Yeah. So rather than going to a training organisation rather than somebody who's going to try and sell you something, are you seeing that level?
No, we definitely are, and I think it's increasing, in all honesty. Prior to the pandemic, it was largely being driven by financial issues, and we were struggling to get traction, particularly with sort of SMEs in general. Whereas once we've got through the pandemic and Brexit, now we have a labour shortage, and there's a lot of businesses out there just faced with the challenge that they can't get people, and the only option is to then look at automation. Where they need help, and I'm not trying to sort of say that they're lacking expertise necessarily, but people often want to automate their biggest problem. And the biggest problem is often difficult to automate, because if it's difficult to do manually, it's going to be difficult to do automatically. And everybody needs to recognise there is a learning curve associated with anything that's new. And the best way of starting on this journey is to pick an application that's relatively simple. It may not give you the best payback, and it may not give you exactly what you need in the short term, but if you think longer term, if you're thinking where you want to be in 5 years' time, start with something simple, start on that learning curve, do the upskilling through that route, and move on to the more complicated applications later. And if you do it through that way, you are going to stand a chance of successfully automating those difficult to automate applications. And that's an awful lot of what we end up doing, Rachel, is we're going into factories and sort of saying, well, actually, don't try and do that job over there today. Yeah. Leave that one till tomorrow and start with something relatively simple. It'll be lower cost, it'll be lower risk, more likely to be successful, and at the same time, helps you then upskill the workforce. And sorry, I know I'm kind of labouring this point, but I think there's one key issue with all of this, is that it's often the barriers are related to the more senior people within a business, because they're not as technology literate as the younger people within the business.
And I think that's
and
really
get them
important.
involved, because they understand the technology and they can assimilate it much quicker than people my age.
But also, when we talk about
Phrase there, Mike,
culture
technology
change,
literate.
when we talk about culture change, that has to be adopted in the leadership team and cascaded down. Otherwise, you've got a them and an us situation. And I know some of the programs, and the Made Smarter program actually offers leadership training around culture and technology. But pinching your words, short, medium, and long-term plan.
Yeah.
I think what you've both described. Am I seeing a question over there?
You've got a question coming from Catherine. So it's for yourself, Mike. So you might have just touched on it, but you'd earlier referenced a case study about Walsall Wheelbarrow, a great story of tradition and technology working together. Manufacturers are reluctant to let go of tradition. We've always done it like this and invest in automation. How can philosophies of tradition complemented by technology be better articulated across industry? Thanks for that question.
That's a good question. I think fundamentally there's a whole bunch of issues in it, but one of them is about skills, and we recognise that we are suffering with skill shortages throughout lots of applications, including things like welding, because we haven't trained welders in the way that we should have done. We've not maintained the apprentice programs and so on. And yes, we want to retain the skills that we've got, and we want to keep those people working, because we do need them. And the key to all of that is to automate the repetitive tasks, the things they don't enjoy doing. Where, if you've got welders in your factory, use them where their skills are adding value to the product, on the complicated jobs, because those are also the jobs they like doing. Where you've got very repetitive tasks, those are the kind of things you can automate. And I think that's the key to it, is looking at what you do and how you operate, and finding the jobs that are really best suited to robots and the jobs that are best suited to people. It's never about 100% automation. That's not the objective. It's about getting the best of both worlds. And if I could just coin a phrase, if you like, if you've got a job that effectively is getting a person to operate like a robot, well, actually robots are better at being robots than people are. So use robots for those jobs.
Chris?
I'd just like to pick up on Mike's point there. I think it is really to convince businesses you need to look at the quick wins. And then part of this group's work is also those case studies. We need to put some positive news out there on stories that have worked, whether it be a traditional manufacturer or a new startup. But we almost need to work together, this group, and that's why we implore you to get involved. We need to show the automation stories, show the quick wins, and then there'll be more adoption.
And I think, Mike, as well, if we go back to your case study from the Warsaw company in Wolverhampton, in what we call the Black Country metal bashing world, I think, and part of that is training you as well as others, but how do we tell that story? And a little bit about culture change and maybe some interviews about the people who suddenly their job is more value added and they don't feel as knackered at the end of the workday because they've been doing the manual, hard labour, repetitive. They've had a more interesting workday and hopefully they're upskilled. But maybe we need to develop that. I don't know, you did the nano version to tell us, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us, particularly when we're trying to encourage younger people into manufacturing, engineering, that we talk in that positive, value-added way all the time. Yep. So let's move on to a slightly political question. So obviously we had budget statement, feels like last week, a couple of weeks ago, and there were a number of things. So let's just focus on the increase in national insurance contributions, increase in minimum wage and national living wage, but then almost the throwaway comments, particularly for us in the West Midlands, we're going to increase the budgets for the West Midlands accelerators and R&D, but the pound signs were missing. And also I'm going to throw into that political bit your thoughts. So your thoughts on that, but also alongside another paper that's out for consultation, the government's approach to the apprenticeship levy and what you can spend it on. So budget statement and apprenticeship levy, your thoughts about impact and change. Start with Tom.
I think there will be an impact, but I would say, just to back up what's been going on here, I don't think it's going to be the major impact. It is an impact. I think, as Mike was saying earlier on, if people use automation to replace the dull, dirty stuff, increase the productivity based on that, the impact of the NI stuff and everything isn't going to make a huge... It will make a difference, but it's not going to make a huge difference. I think it gives us the opportunity to look at more automation, which is a good thing. And it gives us the opportunity to educate at the right places what automation can do. I think I fully agree. When we always talk about skilling people, everybody seems to think we're talking about the engineering level. We're talking about the C-suite. Because if they don't understand the value of automation, they're not going to purchase automation. We do 100% need to start with the best tasks to prove some of these more traditional industries what automation can do. If we pick the toughest task and it fails, it's never going to go back in there again going forward. So we really need to make it, to show people it works, to bring everybody in there on board on what it can do and how it can improve their jobs, improve their lives, improve productivity, improve their wages, and then start doing, because then they're invested in making it work. We can't put it in there as a challenge to everybody. It may have been like that 20, 30 years ago, Mike, when it was like a constant fight. It's not now. We show people the benefits of it. We train people up to the right levels. And as I was saying earlier on, training is one step. We don't need to train everybody up 100 steps. Train the people to use modern technology. If we've done our jobs right, that should be easy to do. Then we train the next people up one tier again and the next people up one tier again. It's one step at a time. We can address it. We do have the people here to do it.
So, although lots of people, I think the general press are reporting it as a negative budget for manufacturers, actually there's an opportunity, and we need to change that language.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we look at it as what it can do, I mean, we all knew there was going to be some increases. I don't think it's come as a major surprise to anybody. And I also don't believe anybody here is going to say it was a great idea, but it had to come. But where we got the advantage in the UK, and I think Marco said it earlier, is we don't have a lot of legacy automation in there that we have to replace. So if we're starting from a pretty blank canvas, we can move up really quickly to get to where we need to be. And if you strip automation right back, even in traditional manufacturers, automation is a tool. That's all it is. We never said we can't automate with hammers. So what's the difference between a robot and a hammer? It's a tool. At the end of the day, it's a tool to give you maximum productivity. It's a clever tool. It can be a dumb tool. But it is just a tool. Automation is just a way of manufacturing that we have to embrace with everybody else.
So, Sam, do you think it's going to change your approach out there in terms of your marketing and your customer relationships?
I think I agree with Tom on the opportunity piece. I think just to step back a little bit on the political front is that from what I'm seeing from the current government, we're being kind of drip-fed bits through, pre-budget, budget. Now we have the green paper and the industrial strategy coming. We don't really have the full picture of what they're going for. So right now we're kind of, operating. And I think it was in the talk before that. Actually, well, you might have said it, Rachel. Sorry. That we're in a bit of a hesitant space in the market. And I think that really until there is that strategy and it's driven forward, we're going to exist in that space. We at Cyberworld, we always talk about what the opportunity is. Our business was born out of, through one of the economic recessions. So we're always looking for that. And when the budget announcement happened, we sat down, we looked at the impact on our own business because that's important, and then talked about, okay, what is the opportunity here? What's it going to look like? But I think until we have that full political picture, it's quite difficult to plan more than a few months in advance because, don't know, something really great might come down the road that makes the national insurance part of it, like Tom said, not the biggest factor. So yeah, we're kind of in a grey zone at the moment, and that's just my opinion on it.
Chris, your thoughts on?
Yeah, I think to mirror what Samantha has said, we're very much in that. We're waiting to see what happens. The industrial strategy, they've got the green paper. When's it actually going to become reality? And until we know that, people aren't going to invest. It's that hesitancy that is holding business back. But I think, as Tom said, we've got such a chance in the UK because we're behind the curve anyway. We've got a great chance now to make leaps and bounds and at least get up to the rest of the world in automation. But I think automation is great, robotics is great. We also need to look at AI and the use of AI in every business. So as a sheet metal worker now, we're embracing AI. If our competitors aren't, great, we'll get ahead of the curve. And I think that's what SMEs in the UK are really good at, looking at the competitors and trying to do something different, trying to get ahead of the curve every time.
So with my business development head on, I would always say, well, if you're in a period of not quite sure, let's take that time to upskill and train. And we've mentioned skills throughout the day completely. Sorry, is there a question? Oh. Before I move on to skills.
No. Before you move on, yes.
Hi everyone. I'm Charlie. I'm from the West Midlands Combined Authority. Just picking up on some of the political points of view. I think a really good point about being in a grey zone. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about industrial strategy and future funding in the spring with the spending review. So we're in a bit of a flux on funding rounds, but there is opportunities around 2025 to 26, I guess nationally and locally, to understand how in local government we can support robotics adoption and the cluster that's emerging. So I'd just be really keen to understand if there are one or two really key interventions that a combined authority, and I was really pleased that our Mayor Richard Parker came on Tuesday. If there's those one or two interventions that would really help drive this, where do you think those would sit? Is it a kind of a realignment or expansion of programmes like Made Smarter, or is it much more of a tailored approach to supporting this group to do events and to do kind of business to business?
Okay, Charlie, so just to help you with that question, or totally unplanned, let's just do a quick raise of hands. Continuation and widening of Made Smarter programme? Hands up. So I hope you're recording this, Charlie. That may be something about, maybe this side of the room don't really know what Made Smarter is, but there's some messaging there. introduction of some grants to enable people to pay a deposit and begin that purchase of robotics and automation. A lot more hands for that. Program that provides access and support to expertise. So some of the stuff that these guys were talking about a few minutes ago, the expertise that helps with the scoping. I think that gives you a fair...
Is it possible that that's people not knowing what Made Smarter is or not, do you think?
Okay, another question.
Sorry.
Do you know what Made Smarter is? Okay, same number.
I think that the strange thing about that is the one about the reaching people and learning what's there is vital. When you actually get into companies, the financing isn't always the biggest issues. We very rarely don't get a sale because of finance. What we do get a sale of is the perception of how much that is going to be needed, not the actual amount it is. So once you can get in there and sell that return on investment, sell that lifetime running cost, sell all the information they need to know, it becomes a different question. If you ask people, if you went out and done a canvas poll of, can you afford automation, they're going to say no. Once you tell them what it is, how much it costs, what it will do for them, the answer suddenly becomes a yes. So it's getting that information out there of what it is, not just money.
Mike?
I just want to sort of emphasise that point. I think there are two key issues that we need to help people with. One is the awareness, exactly as Tom's saying. Help people understand what automation is, what it could do for them. And then the other element of it, I'm not a great fan necessarily of grants to help them buy the equipment, but I'm actually in favour of helping the banks understand what this is all about so that they can finance it successfully, because that's one of the barriers. But I do think there's an issue in terms of training, if you like, is helping businesses procure the equipment, giving them the advice and the support they need to go through the journey the first time. Because once they've done it once, it becomes an awful lot easier. So I think it is about awareness and support to help them undertake.
And there have been programmes in the past where there was no grant money, but it was a relationship with an advisor that helped you get that specialist advice. Before I come to you, Chris, I just want to give 3 points. So Grant Thornton this morning released their survey of 500 finance leaders around the opportunities and the challenge in finance for their businesses. 77% are looking to secure funding, investment in the next 6 months, which goes back with some of the data we've seen earlier. But their concerns and their issues are limited credit opportunities, more stringent lending criteria, ability to repay, and the change in the risk appetite. So I think I agree with you, and I spent a lot of time working with banks and training their relationship advisors in terms of how you talk to a manufacturer. But I'll be honest, they've always been informal programs. I mean, it's MTC. You have a great relationship with MTC, with Lloyds Bank.
Yep.
But I'm going to guess, do you train them?
Ironically, actually, not in lots of detail, but I have personally done training for both Lloyds and NatWest, and I know WMG do training for NatWest in terms of robotics automation, giving them some ideas as to what it's all about and what the benefits are. And part of the reason why we do that is because ultimately it's the finance guys that you need to convince within a business. It's not the engineers. The engineers get it in the main.
The
But
culture.
it's the guys with the money. So it's either the FDs or the MDs or the owners. And the banks actually spend a lot of time talking to that community, and we don't. So if we can get the banks on side and get them encouraging their clients to undertake this journey, we do stand more of a chance of being successful.
Chris?
I'd just pick up on that point. It's not just finance blocking companies from taking up automation. So we did a lot as the start of this steering group, looking at the reasons why certainly SMEs won't take up automation, robotics. So some of that is finance, but some is where we're making very low volume parts and we don't believe that they can be automated. And some, as Mike said, is where the MD or the owner has had a bad experience with automation. So we almost need to join with you and tell us from the West Midlands what is stopping us taking up automation and robotics, so we can then put some funding mitigation in place around each of those points.
And sometimes even who's the blockage in the supply chain? Which is the company that's causing, because some of us have access to those companies in a more subtle way. Okay, let's move on to skills then.
Just to add to what Chris was saying there, I think, it's an obvious thing always to focus on the blockage and what's the barriers to kind of entry to automation. I think what we're rubbish as a region and the country is telling the success stories.
Yeah.
You know, what does good look like? How did the successful SMEs grow? How did the successful SMEs become large businesses? We don't share that sort of best practice. You know, we silo that in our own industry. So, you know, and not just amongst businesses, but amongst business sectors. You know, so why can't we take some of the real good lean methodologies from automotive and take them to food and bev or healthcare, if you like, and try and understand best practice amongst everyone in the room, to be fair.
Rachel.
That's what we're trying to do as a group. Yeah.
Yeah, I just it's been really interesting for me. So I mentioned earlier that I've moved into this space in the last 6 months. I spent the last 10 years working in stratcoms with the government and the military. So I see all of this, a lot of this. Obviously, there's the technical side. I'm not decrying that. I've got 3 of our engineers staring at me in the audience today. But I see a lot of this, and what I'm trying to bring to the cluster as well with Mike and Rachel and the team is, you know, looking at, I see it as one giant kind of stratcoms exercise of, you know, like you said, finding the blockers, helping the understanding. I listened to a really interesting podcast on the BBC this morning that was looking at Germany and France's culture around manufacturing and just industry in general. And, you know, talking about how Germany has always seen itself as an industrial nation. And so I'm really interested to see how it's communicated when the industrial strategy does come out, because I'm hoping if they change the messaging from the top, so from the government, and then we're able to trickle that down, you can start instilling that kind of sense of we need to do this, and this is the direction we're going in. So yeah, I kind of see it as one giant communications exercise, but that's just because I'm biased with my lens.
I agree with you, and I think that's definitely a call for Charlie to take back to the Combined Authority about how we message and case study that, but also to Tom and Dave, because you deal with the supply chain and the clients. Actually giving us those stories, we have the opportunity to get them out then. It's about working together. Okay, as I said again.
I think the one thing we
move on to
we
skills?
should get those stories out just really quickly though. I don't think is the UK and as clusters and everything else we should. I know I keep quoting Germany's numbers and where they are. I don't think we should use Germany as a model, because Germany is pretty much just an automotive country. We've got a much wider base of automation, of industries around here. If you took the automotive numbers out of Germany's numbers, it's worse than ours. So even though they have a huge amount, as soon as they stop making cars, as they are at the moment, they pretty much got nothing. So use it as an example of where we nick to, but don't base our model on automotive.
And I've had that conversation already this morning with somebody. Automotive in the UK, bar Nissan, is niche. Yes, Jaguar Land Rover make large numbers, but they're selling cars at 100k plus. That's niche. You compare them with the Morgans, Aston Martins of the world, it's niche, but automation is viable there. So skills, we've all discussed in various ways this morning and agree, I think, that actually automation gives the opportunity for higher level skills. So again, another hands up question. How many of you have apprentices within manufacturing and engineering in your companies? Okay, so a good number. I'm going to make a guess that they're probably entry level and then working up the tiers of apprenticeship, and hopefully someone will end up doing maybe the degree level apprenticeship. But you will also we all have a workforce, maybe predominantly older, white and male, that as new equipment, new technology comes in, part of the adoption has to be upskill those people. Currently, that upskilling, even if accredited, cannot be funded via the apprenticeship levy. The fantastic facility downstairs in terms of your academy is entirely funded by yourselves and customers that use it. But to be able to open that up, do you think that would provide more opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's vital that we do it. I think reskilling is just as important as upskilling. We have a huge amount of people out there, and if some of the traditional jobs that are displaced by automation, those people have a very good skill set that can be upskilled to do it. So yeah, 100%.
They're in the right culture, aren't they? Yeah. And Mike, when you talked earlier on that and you weren't proud to admit that you grew up without a mobile phone and without colour TV. So you're one of those people that we're talking, but you now hold a role as a senior leader within automation. How do we get, and how does the MTC work with companies to move people up those skill levels?
For those that don't know, we obviously have an apprentice school inside the MTC, and we do produce a lot of apprentices, all engineering. But I think it's worth mentioning something. We've got a project underway that's funded by the Department for Education, which is all about workforce foresighting. And most of the studies that they've done are looking at industry sectors and technologies that are not yet being used. But I managed to persuade them that they needed to look at SMEs and automation. And the reason I persuaded them of that was, albeit the automation may exist, it may be proven technology, but for a lot of SMEs, it's new. So therefore, it kind of fitted the criteria. And what we're doing is getting a whole panels of experts from employers, technology providers, and the education system together to identify what are the gaps in the current education provision related to the adoption of automation within SMEs. We're still at an early stage. We're going to finish the cycle early next year, and there'll then be a report produced. And the objective of that is not about a report that just sits on a desk. The objective of all of these is about action. So it's about coming out with recommendations that say we need courses in X, Y, Z, and we need to be able to make those available and how that can be done. But I think just to stress, one of the key points that seems to be coming out is it's not just about the technology skills, the technical skills that you'd expect the shop floor to need. It's also about the skills in terms of procuring automation. So going back to the managers, the owners and so on, it's actually putting training in place that helps them go through the journey to actually successfully buy or specify and buy this kind of equipment. And that seems to be one of the elements that's coming through this. And when you think about it, we do all these apprentice courses and so on, but we don't train people how to go and buy stuff. No. Which might sound ridiculous, but we don't. And I think that's a gap that we need to fill.
Interesting. So Chris, as an SME MD, who's been in one company for a long time, but in a new company, therefore the difference, and presumably you're going through a process still of understanding how skills and the upskilling need and requirement, and are there barriers?
So I don't think there's barriers per se to upskilling, because upskilling, business will invest if they can see a return, which is having a better workforce. I think the apprenticeship levy now needs a complete revamp. It hasn't done what it was meant to do. And the fact that there is apprenticeship levy money unspent is criminal, I think. We should find innovative ways of trying to release that money, whether that be give it to apprentices who can't travel to a training centre because they're 16, 17, give them some travel money. But to have, as a government, to have apprenticeship levy money unspent, it hasn't done what it's meant to do.
And the fact that, and the previous speaker spoke about a bursary, but you and I both know the client we work with, they have a bursary fund precisely for that, to provide travel for young apprentices, because often the training centres, no disrespect to you, FANUC, you're actually out of travel distance for a lot of people in the West Midlands.
Absolutely.
But you can't. The apprentices can't access that money.
They can't get there. Yeah,
and
they
yet
can't.
There's a massive amount of money unspent, and we almost need
it
a
goes
different
back to
way
the,
of
goes back to
thinking.
the Treasury.
Yeah, we need a different way of thinking to unlock that money, give it to employers, give it to apprentices, do something with it, but don't just send it back to the Treasury. That's not doing what it was there for.
It's intended for. And also, what those people that have paid into it via your levy payments, are you making the most of what you're paying in? Okay, as a last round, I'm going to start at the other end, Chris, to give you a rest. So, a clear definition of advanced manufacturing, because if we even in the local regional policy and in industrial strategy, it talks solely about advanced manufacturing. I don't know that everybody really understands what that is, but again, a speaker this morning said it's about how we make rather than what we make. And Mike's case study around, you can be an advanced manufacturer and still make a wheelbarrow. It's the processes. Just people's thoughts on that statement, how we make it rather than what we make it. Is that important? And what would be your key wish to change.
And you're going to start that.
And I'm going to start, sorry.
Brilliant.
Yes. You spoke last.
Thanks, Zachary. Yeah, I guess advanced manufacturing is possibly potentially at risk of being the new everyday person that was talked about ahead of the budget. So governments like to have these buzz phrases that I think sometimes are deliberately undefined. So it can either have a very broad scope or a very restricted scope, depending on what they're going to do next. So we saw that in the run-up to the budget with the everyday person not being affected, and then everyone was like, what's an everyday worker? Am I an everyday worker? Are you an everyday worker? But I think that something like advanced manufacturing probably needs to have a few definitions and maybe just a scope of what it covers, because, you know, like you said, and also advanced manufacturing also implies that there's an opposite of that, what's that? Rudimentary manufacturing? All manufacturing's, in my eyes, as a layman, is advanced, because you're creating something, you know, in a production line that's not then being done by hand by one single person. But even a skilled single person making something can be high-end and really technical. So not an answer to your question.
Okay, no, but
I think that I think that things like this should remain broad, but with different applications. But if there's going to be funding and things attached to it, then they will have to define that scope a bit more, and not that it then alienates people that are maybe like artisan manufacturing or that kind of thing.
Thank you. Tom?
I think I'd like to thank Sam for, I've been sitting here thinking about it, and she actually stole the one answer I did have.
Sorry.
I think all manufacturing is advanced. I think advanced in the title isn't needed. I think we need to change all manufacturing to get to the same platform, then it's all advanced. If it doesn't matter what the product is and it matters how you do it, which it does, let's get everybody the skills to manufacture it the same way. Then it's just manufacturing again. So I guess I don't have an answer to what advanced manufacturing is, but it is manufacturing.
Actually, that's a really interesting thought, yeah.
If I go back about a year, the government defined advanced manufacturing as automotive, aerospace, and life sciences. And they focused everything in those areas. That to me is a big problem, because about half of UK manufacturing isn't included in those three categories. Now, when, I know it was the last government, they released an advanced manufacturing paper about November last year, they redefined it, and that's where the thought process came in terms of it's not what you make, it's how you make it. The current government hasn't defined it yet, and we don't know which kind of way they're tending to go. I do think there will be an emphasis on areas where they can see potential for growth, whatever that means. I'm aligned with everybody else so far. I think all of manufacturing is advanced, and all of manufacturing is what we should be focused on, because there are an awful lot of businesses in supply chains, particularly SMEs, that may be producing some parts for automotive, they may be producing some parts for aerospace, they may also be producing some other parts for something else. And fundamentally, they don't necessarily align themselves with one particular sector. And SMEs are 99% of UK manufacturing. So it's wrong to me to categorise it that way. And just to throw one in, food manufacturing wasn't included in advanced manufacturing. Food manufacturing is 50% of our manufacturing sector, and we need it to be good, and we need it to be here because we need resilience in our food supply chains. So I don't think you can ignore all of manufacturing. I think it's got to be the lot, and we really do need to move everybody up the skills, up the automation use, exactly as we've been saying multiple times, but address it as one coherent group rather than trying to break it up into different sectors.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to help you last about. So what if we called it UK manufacturing?
Yeah, so look, I think just going back to the advanced thing, I think, look, Samantha absolutely nailed what that is, you know. Like, I think it's deliberately ambiguous, you know. I think we bring these words out every year or so, you know. Industry 4 means something different to me than it means to you guys. Industry 5 is exactly the same. Yep. Advanced manufacturing. And we've actually got advanced manufacturing engineering. You know, what's a normal engineer? They're not advanced manufacturing engineers. It's madness, and I think it's deliberate to just frame what we want it to frame. I think, look, UK manufacturing is advanced by its very nature. I think it has to be. You know, I think going back to to the budget, going back to the cost of living. You know, we're a country that has high wages. You know, we have to be advanced in what we do, because if we don't, we're absolutely going to be left behind. You know, so I think it's really hard not to add anything more than these guys have added. But to me, all manufacturing is advanced as well. Yeah.
Final word, Chris.
Final word. Well, so I think they've got it the wrong way round. Advanced manufacturing. I think we may need to make all manufacturing advanced. We are the movers and the makers. We need to be moving quicker and making more. We need to be more productive, and automation will help with that.
Thank you. Thank you, panel. Open to questions from the audience and online.
Come on.
One at the back there.
Hi, I'm Quibus. I actually work for a hardware company. But I have one question which is quite important, because I do dip into manufacturing, be it electronic manufacturing. I've heard a lot, and this is what I typically do with panels. I like to disagree. I've heard a lot of we need funding, we need government agreement, we need documents, we need etc. I'd like to ask the question, what is the cost of not automating? Because I think that's quite critical. Where are you going to be in 5 years if you do not automate? Because if you get to that point, you start to understand what you need to do, what POCs you need to run, and where to get your funding without external effect as individual businesses. I think that's quite an important.
Interesting question. Thank you.
I think the real answer to that is, if we don't automate, we won't be here.
Yeah.
We're not going to be doing it. If you already take the advantages that other nations have got in their productivity, unless we close that gap, you know, we're not going to do it. So we really need to focus. It's exactly right. I go into a lot of companies, and my question, that when they say they can't automate, it's you cannot afford not to automate. You have to automate. It's the only way you're going to be able to increase productivity, sell more product, keep it. That's the only way you're going to keep it. It has to be done. It's not a matter of if. We really have to do it. There's no alternative. You know, if we're waiting for the technology of 10 years' time to come out so that we can manufacture, we won't be here. We'll be in a lot of other countries. And we're not necessarily if you take some of the other countries that were traditionally seen as low-wage economies, they're not so low now. They're catching that gap up really quick. China is probably FANUC's biggest market. They are buying more automation than anybody, and they would, I guess, probably traditionally be seen as a low-wage economy. They're not. What they're doing is producing everything a lot more effectively, and we have to do that. We just have to be effective.
Anyone else?
Well, just a very practical comment. The average age in manufacturing is over 50. So in about 10 years' time, we won't have manufacturing, because there'll be nobody working in it, because they'll all have retired.
It's about the only thing I've ever been above average at.
Likewise.
I think that's the point. I mean, I think if you give one of your talented young engineers every Friday afternoon to just write it off and say, just play and run POCs for me, I think you'll get solutions very quickly. So.
And I think I used it earlier this morning. I'd like to use it again. There was 3 apprentices on stage here yesterday, and they were talking about various things. But one that really struck me was they were asked where they wanted to be in 10 years' time. And one of them said an answer that I couldn't have improved on, is that she didn't know, because the job she was going to do in 10 years' time doesn't exist. And you think, that is true. So unless we use now, we're not going to be able to use that. We're not going to get the skill levels up.
Let me just give another version of that answer. So I met with a young chap, I'm going to say mid-30s, last week in the jewellery quarter, demonstrating a machine that was quite interesting for the jewellery sector. And I said, whose machine is it? Because he kept talking about we, me, I. And I thought he was an agent. He went, no, it's my machine, it's my company. I said, so, and he owns 27 patents on it. I said, so how do you tell me your story? He used to repair the previous version of that machine in his garage at home. That was his job, his livelihood, was repairing, servicing these machines. And he soon realised what all the faults were. I could make this better. So he went off his own bat, without any help, no grant, no nothing, and developed this machine. Found one customer. He now employs 12 people in a factory unit. He doesn't have his factory, his garage at home. But if if we don't grow and develop and adopt technology, here's a technology machine, we'll come back to being a country of artisans. Everybody working at their home, in their garage or their workshop, producing something beautiful, but the technology will have missed us and gone by.
I was going to say, like, we're quite lucky. I say lucky, we've worked really hard at it. So large majority of our workforce have come through apprenticeships with us, stay on, and some have gone on to earn degrees, some have done their HNCs, and we're really big into that at Cyberworld. I actually, sometimes I recently had to do an ID check for like an HR thing or so on, and I winced as like 17, and I'm watching what they're doing, and I'm like, this is mind-blowing, you're brilliant. And if I did the rough numbers in my head now, 2/3 of our workforce are under the age of 35. And that kind of playing around thing is a really interesting point. And, you know, all businesses have kind of peaks and troughs in their work output. And we were talking yesterday about, you know, there's a couple of people who are upskilling at the moment. We were like, right, let's get them to build a system, get them some old parts, get them to build a system and chuck that at them and say, right, learn from the other people and build this system. And we'll eventually go and sell it. So it benefits us, but it's that concept of, you know, factoring in that in their learning and development, not just structured learning and development, but giving them the opportunities to play with the kit, make the mistakes, build it. And I know that, you know, our MD is really passionate about that. He was an apprentice himself. Each year we take on up to 3 apprentices, you know, and really giving them that chance to get stuck in and get hands-on.
And that's about the culture.
Yeah.
There was one question, was there, before we finish?
I've got one more, yes.
Okay.
One moment. I'm getting my steps.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm from FANUC. One question to the panel. We had a really good discussion yesterday with the apprentices, and there was one young apprentice, and he actually said that when he comes into contact on the workshop floor with colleagues that have gone to university, they don't have these practical skills. And I think there's been such a focus on pushing students into university, and the apprenticeship schemes have kind of gone by the wayside. Do you think we're now potentially missing almost a generation of talent that have gone into university streams as opposed to coming through apprenticeship programs that we will never get back?
Yeah, I mean, if I can my mic's gone. If I can answer that, yeah. As well as the work I do with Expert, I chair an apprentice organisation and sit on a board in the northeast, a local university there, if you like. I think absolutely. I think we've lost more than a generation. I think we've probably lost 2 generations of engineers through the university route. I think you know, we don't want to get too political, but there was a government before the one that was in last that pushed everyone through university. You know, you know, there's the basket weaving degree always comes to mind, isn't it? If you like, you know, but I think there's only industrialists and people who are in engineering who can push that back. You know, the reason I got involved with education was because I went to the university when I set the business up in 2012 with exactly the problem you've just described. I went to the University of Sunderland when we set the business up in the northeast and said, I've got no one employable with a degree can come and work for me now. I'm taking people at 20 years old who are nowhere employable. They are 16. And the principal of the university at that time said it was my fault because I wasn't involved with the university to tell them what they needed to teach. I got involved with the university, got more involved with that and changed that, and then the degree levy come in, if you like, and we changed that whole programme. So I think it is changing, but we've got a huge thing to catch up with, huge things. I mean, it goes back to the apprentice levy that we talked about. I think we actually use the apprentice levy quite well as Expert. You know, it works quite well for us because we do it all the way through the ecosystem. So from level 2 through to level 7, if you like, all the way through that ecosystem, we spend all of our levy. But, you know, to take Chris's point, the amount of money that's not spent and goes back in the Treasury as unspent money for training is appalling. It's just tax. You know, we can say whatever we want it is, but it's just a tax. And that whole system needs breaking down. And when it says it needs reform, I think as an apprentice levy, it works, but only for apprentices. But that's not just the problem, is it? There's skills problems, so you should be able to use that money to send the FANUC and do some FANUC training, if you like, to send MTC do some specialist stuff. That's what we're missing as well. Because degrees won't tell you how to program a robot.
No.
Well, I'm going to challenge that,
Right.
actually, because you're right, we shouldn't always be in agreement. Because I'm staring at someone across the room who's in one of our green jackets, Josh and Karis and Will, who are here, with varying levels of education. And I think, going back to your question, Catherine, I think you're right. I think we have lost a couple of generations. I am one of the generation that got forced down the university route, and now having seen all the other opportunities available, I'm thinking, oh God, could have saved myself a lot of money there. But I think it's about using different people as they come across your floor plate to their strengths. So, when we have the apprentices, and this is not to say others aren't, but, there's an extreme amount of discipline that comes with being an apprentice that's taught to them. I look at them, the 17, 18-year-olds that we've had work for us, and they're turning up bang on time, working super hard, and I wouldn't have been able to do that at 17. But I'm looking at Josh, because Josh just joined us recently for a period of time to help us with some coding. So Josh just graduated with maths, I think it is, from Durham University, and we needed a specific piece of code written. And so, Josh, your university course didn't teach you this, did it? No. But Josh has got a fantastic mathematical brain and has come in, and working with the guys, with the apprenticeships, with the engineering experience, people like Harris, Bradley, Will, is learning from the hands-on technical people and is able to build this code, which if they could have done it, we wouldn't have brought Josh in. They're very skilled at other stuff, and they've frankly got a lot of work on, and is able to do that. And that's playing to Josh's strengths as a graduate in that type of way. And so I think it's, when you're building a team of people and of varying education levels, making sure they're in the roles that are fit for purpose for what they're doing. Because if you try and put them the other way around, you're not going to get the best outcome.
And I think that's knowledge transfer, which is fantastic, particularly across the skill levels and the generation. So we're out of time, but I do have a call or action for all of you. One is the Industrial Strategy Green Paper, responses by the 25th of November, midnight. If you go and download it, it's, 100 plus pages. But if you ask for the template for responses in Google, there's 35 questions. Even if you only answer one or two of them, it gets the message across. And if you talk about missed opportunities, future opportunities, those are the key things that I think as an industry we should focus on. So please do that. Similarly, if any of you have apprentices and work with a training organiser, there is a green paper out on the apprenticeship levy reform. So if you belong to a trade organisation or train with a training organisation, they will all be contributing to that to make sure your voice is heard. I think today is very much about hearing, listening, learning, but action is go and make sure your voice and collectively our voices are heard. So if we could thank our panel in the normal way. And then I think we're over to lunch.
And also to yourself, that was perfectly chaired. Thank you.
Yeah, well done, Rachel.
One thing, sorry, just before everybody goes, we're closing the show today. This is the last day of the show. I'd really like to thank you all for coming here and everybody that's online watching streaming as well. Some of the numbers of attendees and streaming have been phenomenal this year. The panels, I think all the panel discussions have been really interesting, and I think the debate has been really good. So thank you for taking the time out of your diaries to come here. Thank you to all the exhibitors. I hope to see you again next year when we do it. And let's just keep pushing it forward. Everything is good in this country. I know some of the times we have these talks, it almost makes it sound as if we're doing everything wrong. We're doing 90% right. Let's just push for that other little bit. So thank you very much for coming in. Enjoy lunch. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. No. If you are watching online as well, we're just going to continue the stream and we'll take you on a tour of the whole of the exhibition halls also. And if you're here, again, thank you. And it's lunchtime. Fabulous.
And now we're here on the first MTA stand. I'm here with Steve Ellicott. Thank you so much for having us on the stand. So you're showing off a brand new piece of technology here that's been around quite a lot of the European shows. But what is it and what's the response been like?
Response has actually been really good here, as FANUC is all about automation and robotics. So this is our robot hand that measures as you can pick and sort. Remove from machine, measure while it's coming out, so you're not losing any downtime. Don't need to use a CMM. You have a critical dimension. You can check that journal dimension maybe, qualify it as you remove from the machine. We can report back to the machine itself, change an offset, and just continue running.
And that's one of the big questions around in-process inspection is how much time is it going to take out of my actual cutting time on the machine, which is the most important part, really. If you made a good part, you don't want to know about it. You want to just get it out and get the next one in.
Yeah, we can now, if you're running overnight, lights out, as we know, robots, they're great, they can run through the night, but unless you actually have 100% inspection, you can still produce loads of scrap. With our unit, if you do have an issue, you should only lose one component. So again, it's saving time, increasing productivity, and it's very economical what we're going to do with it.
Absolutely. You can imagine that if a part goes out of tolerance and you're making it overnight, no one's there to stop it, but this could save a hell of a lot of money at 3 o'clock in the morning when maybe a tip goes and makes a bad component. And you've got another one on OD as well?
Yeah, this one, all we've done is, that's the internal one, it's measuring one bore, so it could be an automotive part. This one here, with the jaw design on there, we can actually look at the 2 or 3 diameters and a length with one unit. So each of the jaws, you can design a new set of jaws for any type of component. So if you wanted to go again, because we use a comparator, like you would with a micrometer and a slip, you can just design a new set of jaws for a whole new unit. So just take those jaws off, put a new set of jaws on, a couple of test measurements with a comparator, and away you go.
Brilliant. And what kind of tolerances can you hold with this equipment?
We say plus or minus 5 microns.
I don't want to hold you to, I don't want to hold you down to some exact numbers, but
they say in literature, it's plus or minus 8, but we're achieving inside plus or minus 5. And we do. The products are on large automotive lines in Japan, so if they're going with that, then obviously it should be all across Europe, really.
Perfect, thank you very much. And if the cameraman comes around here, we've also got something else to show. This is the Browning Erco, a brand new partnership, Steve. What's happening?
Brand new partnership. Obviously, we've always been renowned for bar feeders and such. We've now introduced Browning Erco, so this is loading and unloading of bars. So it's application-based. We do have standard options, but we can now do things that other people can't. So
look at the variety of different bars. This is an example of bars that you can load and unload with these kinds of this technology.
Yeah. We can do all the normal rounds and hexes and squares, but any of these shapes we can load. For instance, you may not realise that so we can actually load and unload a 10-metre section of this.
Yeah, wow. And that's a really weird shape. It's like a P shape. Is that in what kind of industry would that be from?
That could be any industry, aluminium extrusion. So it could be an aerospace part, could be part of a frame, seats or anything. So we can sort loads of different components, preformed bolts that need to be rethreaded at the end, so aerospace, motorsport parts. They're quite easy now. We use a hopper system. So as you can see on some of the videos, we could load and unload 10-metre 120 mil diameter bars, which is, I don't think there's anyone else there that can do it. Browning have been doing it. They've started start of the 60s. It's a family company. They've done no marketing, and they have a fantastic reputation. It's all word of mouth. So now we've introduced it to UK and Ireland. This is our first public outing. It is on the website. We've done LinkedIn posts, but this is the first time you guys have seen it.
You heard it here first, on video, online, world premiere of the Browning Erco partnership with First MTA in the UK. I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Steve.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Rowan.
And now we're here at the True Position Robotics stand. And Stephen, we came to your site a couple of years ago. Amazing facility, some really cool technology. We'll talk about it in just a second, but Stephen Ainsworth here, you used to work at FANUC as well. You're a bit of a veteran.
Years ago. Well, yes, I've been around a while.
Yeah, definitely. So it's nice to be back here. And now, FANUC Open House, working with True Position Robotics. Tell us a little bit about what you do. It's really high technology stuff.
We are indeed a high-tech company, yes. We have a four-stage process. So we develop, first of all, we take the model of the part, we develop the robot path from that model. We then have a process where we can measure the part as it stands. We can compare that with the model and put in the offsets for improving the program to make sure that everything is in the right place. We can then drill and countersink the holes to very high accuracy. We can do better than 0.2 millimeters and positional accuracy, which is within Airbus standards. And then finally, we can tell you that every single hole has been done correctly and in the right place and give you that data so it can be analyzed using Polyworks or a similar sort of system and there's no need to re-inspect our part because our first time through is very good because we can tell you everything's right first time.
Absolutely. To give this some context, we're talking about aircraft assembly. I guess you call it the skin of the aircraft. We're talking about these kinds of parts.
Can be, but it could be any parts really because we measure the skeleton that they put the skin on so we know where everything is.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been quite a good year for True Position Robotics as well. There's been some really good things happening.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah. Well, we've got our first full order for a complete system, and that's going to be bought off in the next few weeks. Yes, we're very positive future. We've got some good opportunities.
Yep. And you've got quite a multidisciplinary team in the engineering department as well.
Indeed, we have. Yes. Yep. We've got. We do our own design. We have a good development team as well. We've recently set on some new folk. We have apprentices, so we're very much looking at developing the company and the skills and expertise within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the technology itself, it has some patents attached to it as well, doesn't it?
We have a number of patents, yeah, and some that are pending at the moment as well, which are exciting new developments.
Absolutely. So patented technology aimed at aerospace manufacturers, but could be applied to other things as well.
Anybody who needs the accuracy to make sure that something is positioned very accurately and to know that it's in the correct position and be able to record that data so they can analyze it later. That's exactly what we're all about.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Pleasure.
And we're here on the Filter Mist stand with Dr. Simon Harkis. Simon, for those who don't know, who are Filter Mists?
Oh, so actually Filter Mist, and we're proud to say this, are the preferred oil mist extraction partner for FANUC EMEA.
Yep. So that's definitely a big thing.
It is a big thing and something we're very proud of. So actually we have a very useful cutaway unit here to explain the technology that we have. So what we have here is a rotating drum with these curved vanes inside, and what they do is impact any oil mist particles that are above 1 micron inside. They will literally impact physically on these metal vanes, and then the gravity or the centrifugal force will then turn that liquid, that aerosol back into liquid, which will then be drained out. Now, anything below 1 micron in size is much more difficult to capture through this physical impaction. So that's why we have these afterfilters, these pleated afterfilters. So they will capture anything that's sub-micron, giving you a very, very clean air coming out of the back of a CNC machine. Now, what is all this oil mist that I'm talking about, right? That's the question. So we have a very good demo of that here. So what we've got inside here...
Thank you, Callum.
Good man. What we've got inside here is we've just got a very simple demonstration where we're generating water vapor to represent inside what we would generate inside a CNC machine, which is oil mist. We've actually got the stainless steel version of our filter mist on the top of here because that's what we use in water-based applications, especially in parts washing applications, where we're using things like surfactants and corrosive etching agents. The mild steel version would corrode under those circumstances, so we use the mild steel drum. And we have no afterfilter, because the afterfilter has chemicals in there that would be affected by surfactants, etc.
And as you can see, the oil mist has just been extracted, and the rest, most of it will be dripping back down into in this case, a coolant sump.
Exactly that. So there's two options really. If you're running a fairly clean process, you can recycle the oil back into the machine. Whereas if it's a fairly dirty process, you can put it into a drum. And then we actually have pieces of monitoring systems that will tell you when that drum needs to be emptied. Also, the after filter, touching back on that, we also do an F monitoring series, which will indicate when that filter is blocked and needs to be replaced.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's a really important point, is that you'll get most of the oil comes out and then back into the machine tool, but these filters do need to be replaced, and if they don't, then the system won't work correctly.
Well, you'll start to reduce the airflow, so it'll take longer and longer for the machine to clear exactly before you can open the door. So you don't want to lose productivity by taking longer before you can open the door and extract the part that you've made.
Brilliant. So we've talked about how the technology works, but one thing we haven't mentioned is why you need it. Why does someone need to not come into contact with the oil mist inside a machine tool?
It's one of them unfortunate coincidences, which is that when you're running a CNC machine, the oil mist that's generated is actually of the correct particle size that's respirable. It'll get pretty deep into your lungs if you're breathing it in, and we're becoming more and more aware of those things. I don't know if you noticed, we had a pandemic recently where people got really aware of airborne contaminants and what they're breathing in, but actually we're kind of fortunate in a way in our business in that the UK HSE legislates for this. You have to have a clean workshop where you're not generating these myths for people to breathe in. That's not the same in all markets, but in our home market that is the case. It's legislated for.
Yeah, absolutely. For those health and safety managers who are listening to this, what is important to take into account when it comes to this this aspect of the health and safety in their workplace and their workshop?
Yeah, so it's an interesting. There's a duality here. So we work with a lot of OEMs, like FANUC, for example. Their robo drill, as standard, takes our FX 4002. But the responsibility does not lie with the machine manufacturer. It lies with the end user, with the facilities manager, with the MD, essentially, of the end user machine. They are legally required to provide clean air for their workers to breathe. So it is a legislation. You have to do it.
Brilliant. Okay, so to keeping hopefully workplaces up and down the country and worldwide cleaner, healthier, hopefully better places to work. Thank you very much, Dr. Simon Harkis.
Very welcome. Very welcome. A pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm here at the Nikon stand with Nathan Rayner. Nathan, we're going to talk about an application, a really interesting application, this robot drill behind us in a second. But what are you showing off on the table here?
So for those of you that don't know, I mean, we are Nikon. We are providers, manufacturers of high-performance machine tool accessories. So here today we have a full suite of our products. That's everything from tool presetting machines, spindle nose tooling, all high-performance, specific to the robo drill machine behind me.
So you've got loads of BT30 milling tools, but there is an interesting, you've got a single point boring bar as well, but there is a really interesting tool holder here. Is this part of the demo you're trying to show?
So this is absolutely part of the star of the show for today. This is actually a turning tool holder. So for the first time ever, we are fitting a solution to enable multitasking onto a robo drill machine with a Nikon 5-axis direct drive rotary table.
So with Nikon, not only can you use top quality milling tools, BT30 back end on a robot drill, there's now a new option for multitasking. What does that mean? Let's go and have a look at the application as well.
So what that means is that the robo drill machine, that I'm sure everybody watching this is entirely familiar with as a 3-axis machining platform, now becomes capable of turning. So the direct drive table that you see here, we define the HSR table, is capable of spinning up to 1,500 RPM on this platform. That is paired with a Nikon patented solution for turning tools in the machine tool spindle. So you'll see there's a stopper block behind the machine tool spindle, which holds the turning tool in orientation, allowing full tool changeability of turning tools as well as your standard suite of milling tools.
So we can see right now the robot drill is changing between lots of different types of milling tools, and then hopefully soon we'll see it doing the turning. And if you have a quick look at the tool holder here, the stopper block is there behind the spindle, and then it will engage in with this thing here, right?
So we have a hardened pin, which again is fully automated through the PLC, so we make some small PLC changes, and that is crucial to maintaining surface finish and rigidity on the robo drill machine for this application.
And we can see it's just tool change to the single point turning tool there. And what kind of applications are you showing? There's like some kind of casting here now.
So this is a motor housing, but it's directly applicable to anything with a small or a large amount of turning. The concept really is, automation is key. The more we can do on one machining platform without multiple setups, so taking the job off the machine, resetting and back on, the better. So to enable something like this, which needs a small proportion actually of turning and then some intricate milling, if we can do that all on one platform, we're directly saving time and cost. So this entire solution, the pairing of the Nikon turning tool holder, the pneumatic stopper pin and the rotary table, was a solution that Nikon in Japan and FANUC in Japan both worked collaboratively on to produce. So it's actually the only approved turning solution for the FANUC robo drill machine.
Absolutely. We just saw it change from a roughing tool to a turning tool as well. So it's not just like stick one turning tool in. It's a bit of a bodge job. This is a fully integrated system. You're now turning to another internal boring bar as well now.
Fully integrated, and of course FANUC have got years and years of experience in not only milling but turning as well. So the control on this machine is perfectly capable of turning. What we are doing is we are adding the accessories onto that machine tool to really open up the possibilities.
It's a really impressive demo. We've just seen 3 tool changes to roughing, turning, and internal boring. And you can see on the milling, you've got the milling spindle of the machine here, S, and then down here, ST, that's running at 823 RPM. That's actually the turning spindle on the rotary table directly integrated.
That is absolutely the turning spindle. So it's a secondary spindle. As I said, runs up to 1,500 RPM on this particular platform.
Yeah. What more can you say about it? Fully integrated robo drill.
It's a multitasking machine out of a robo drill.
I mean, look at the floor size as well. I'm sure there's so much more we could talk about with just this interesting application. That's some really interesting multitasking now available with robo drill in conjunction with Nikon's high-speed rotary table and a patented system. What could be more interesting than that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's always new products being developed. There's always something new going on. We don't know what's going to be available next, but it'll be worth coming along to find out.
What I like about the open house event that we do is there's always something new on offer. There's always something innovative. There's always something that people haven't seen before. There's no end to the technologies, no end to the possibilities.
Please come in, please come and join us. Let's keep this debate going. Let's keep moving in the right direction, and I really hope to welcome you at FANUC Open House 2024.
FANUC Open House will take place at our UK headquarters from the 12th to the 14th of November. Day 1 will be all about enabling step change for automation adoption. Day 2 will have an education focus where we'll be holding the World Skills National Finals for Industrial Robotics. 10 young budding engineers will be competing for this year's first place. Day 3 will be showcasing the future of automation and our industry. So don't miss out. Make sure you register for this year's free event using the link below.
Really looking forward to the FANUC Open House this year. It's the 12th to the 14th of November at our Coventry headquarters, Anstey Park in Coventry. This year we're focusing on sort of 3 main topics. First is kind of like, how are we doing now in terms of manufacturing? The important thing for us this year is also about collaboration and partnerships. That's where we see a huge value to those that come into the show, to actually understand what best practice looks like, what the return on investment looks like, and where we can actually learn from others. And that's really where you can learn as one of those people coming to the show. I want to try and learn and understand how others are doing it in the best possible way. Get to the FANUC Open House in Coventry.
The FANUC Open House is here at our Coventry HQ on the 12th to the 14th of November this year. We're hoping for exactly the same feedback as we've had over the last number of years. We've got a wide number of exhibitors here, our partners, our customers. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers again, the round table discussions, which are personally always my favourite part, because we need to continue the debate of automation in the UK. We still need to grow it. We are growing, but we have to grow better and faster. If we can get in academics, politicians, manufacturers and OEMs for the equipment like us, then we can cover all the bases of why we need to do it, what needs to be done, the start of your journey or further down your journey. So to address all of the things that are needed to get you started with automation. To register for the event, please go to the FANUC website and register your interest for a free place at the FANUC Open House, and I look forward to seeing you there.
always new products being developed. There's always something new going on. We don't know what's going to be available next, but it'll be worth coming along to find out.
What I like about the open house event that we do is there's always something new on offer. There's always something innovative. There's always something that people haven't seen before. There's no end to the technologies, no end to the possibilities.
Please come in, please come and join us. Let's keep this debate going. Let's keep moving in the right direction, and I really hope to welcome you at FANUC Open House 2024.
After running around all those exhibitor stands, we're now here at the MTD CNC podcast for the FANUC Open House Day 3. I've been joined by a serious star-studded roster of guests here. I've got, starting from my left is Mike Wilson from the MTC. You're the Chief Automation Officer. We've got Rachel Eade, MBE. Am I missing anything else there? No, just MBE, perfect. Yeah. Rachel Eade, MBE. And you're at one of the local universities. I didn't quite catch.
University of Birmingham.
University of Birmingham, perfect. And you're a supply chain specialist.
I am.
Perfect. Yeah, I got to do my little bit of reading before this. Not enough, clearly. And also, directly to my left is Peter Williamson, the CEO of Automate UK. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. And you've all given panel talks, you've been given seminars, and also a bit of panel. Some of you are part of the panel discussion just this morning. For people who weren't able to watch any of those, catch the content, should we start from the left? Mike, what did you cover in your panel talk?
We were largely talking about the West Midlands Robotics and Autonomous Systems Cluster. So that's a new group that we formed to connect everybody that's interested and active in robotics within the West Midlands community, from the universities all the way through to the end users, including the systems integrators and the robot vendors. What we're trying to do is to maximise the adoption and exploitation of robotics and autonomous systems technologies in the West Midlands, so that we can really drive productivity, but we can also drive exploitation of all the clever stuff that's coming out of the universities as well, so that we can really build a network of RAS businesses and businesses that are using robotics technologies in the West Midlands to really drive growth and productivity.
That's interesting. We will get onto what you two talked about soon as well. But I think, is there something to be said about, there's always been a bit of a chasm between university research and then applied technology in industry, and in small to medium enterprises especially, which are a big part of the market. How do you think we can build on, I guess, a legacy? There's been, probably in the past 2 decades, centres that are trying to do this. How can we build on that?
I can answer that.
Yeah, absolutely, please, Rachel.
So, although I work at the University of Birmingham, I'm not an academic. My role is to engage with the supply chain across the West Midlands, manufacturers across all sectors, in terms of access to expertise that helps them grow and develop. So, MTC, University of Birmingham are collaborating with West Midlands RAS as a cluster group to bring together some of that expertise. But within that, we include training providers, OEMs of robotic systems, integrators, to actually bring the market together. And one of the key messages that we discussed this morning, both in panels and with the audience, was about how do we, A, raise awareness of manufacturing in the UK, what it is. It is not the metal bashing of the dark ages. It is about advanced technology. There's quite a debate about advanced manufacturing, and I think the conclusion came as every manufacturing is advanced. It's how we make things, not what we make, that is the advanced bit. And as a country, to grow and increase our output, our efficiency, we need to adopt more technology to remove the labour, manuals, drudgery jobs, to enable people to upskill, earn more, and do jobs that are more fulfilling.
Absolutely. And what services are available or might be available in the future from RAS in this local area? Because obviously this area, the West Midlands and Coventry, have a massive manufacturing base from small slotting head shops that make fasteners. We've visited at MTD CNC to huge manufacturing houses. What services are available to try and help them improve their process quality and upskill their workforce?
So initially, we've only been working together for what, 6-7 months?
6 months, yeah.
So initially, it's about raising the profile and helping companies on an individual basis to access what is already there. Because there is support out there. Universities all provide support. MTC, lots of training providers, but also trade organisations, which is where you come in terms of being able to point people, well, do that. So what is it you think you need? A little bit of helping them understand that and then advising and introducing them to the right people. If we had lots of money, but that's a long way off, yes, we could do training and develop ourselves, but I think why do something that's when it's already out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry I'm not ignoring you, Peter, I promise. And as CEO of Automate UK, could you give us a bit of background about who you are, what you do, and maybe if that's relevant to what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so our mission really within Automate UK, we've got a long history, but more recently we've rebranded to Automate UK, and the main reason for the rebrand was to kind of really focus on the message of the benefits to the UK economy, UK manufacturing, for greater adoption of robotics and automation. And our mission really is to kind of get that message across, not just to the larger organisations, but to particularly smaller and medium-sized businesses who maybe have historically seen that automation is kind of either a bit, the perception is it's a bit too costly or a bit too complicated or a bit too challenging for them, or maybe that they don't feel that they have the volume or the throughput to justify such things. So we just kind of, our message really is to kind of change the mindset around that and make people think differently about how really automation can be used right the way across, manufacturing, from the real high-end automotive, aerospace, kind of traditional advanced manufacturing that we mentioned earlier, right the way through to our favourite case study at the moment, which is the manufacturing of wheelbarrows, which is a fairly basic product, but can be manufactured in a really automated and efficient and effective way.
Brilliant. And could you, Rachel, could you give us a bit of background about yourself now as well? And also, who was it that gave the case study about wheelbarrows? Where did that come from?
You can blame me for that one.
Okay, brilliant. Well, so before we keep on going, what's your role in uni?
I worked in the manufacturing supply chain as a business advisor, fundamentally to help the supply chain, but particularly SMEs. I'm an advocate of SMEs. In helping unlock access to that information and the knowledge that's out there. Most SMEs, owner-managed, MD, is doing what they do, don't have the time or the networking ability to go out and seek out those answers that they keep asking themselves. But to have somebody like me that can go into a company, ask those questions, even the sometimes challenging and embarrassing questions, and then help them come up with an action plan of some solutions, which means introducing them to. And you know what, sometimes it can be.
What are those challenging questions?
But sometimes it can be, and I've done this recently. So you need to finance that piece of kit that you're looking to buy. Who's your bank? XYZ. Do you know your bank manager? Well, I do. Let me give him a ring and get him to come and see you. That's a fairly basic requirement.
Right.
Another request quite often is around, we know we're going to invest, but we're not quite sure where, in technology and automation, we don't know where to start. Is it at the end of the line in the packing, or do we need to do something beforehand? Again, expertise, and quite often I'll refer to the MTC to go and do the walk the line with the client. who will say, well, you could do this or that, but understanding what the company's
like
appetite,
a value stream map
the value
through, just to
stream.
get
But
an
also,
overview of how the process
and also
works.
to help them get the advisor, the MTC expert, what is the company's appetite for change and investment.
Okay, brilliant. So that's given us a bit of context to, I guess, hopefully into the wheelbarrow case study. Is that what you did? You went into a manufacturer?
Fundamentally, although to be fair, they did an awful lot of this themselves.
Brilliant.
So,
good for them.
And the reason I particularly like it as a case study is a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a black country metal bashing business, and it makes wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
And nobody expects us to be making that kind of thing in the UK anymore. But they've undertaken an automation journey. They started back in 2012, and they've introduced robots for welding, for handling between presses, for handling off their bending machines. They've automated the powder coating plant. They've done all that with assistance where appropriate, but largely off the back of their own initiative. They have had support from their bank. They've done it without making anybody redundant. They've upskilled their own workers. They've now got 20 robots in that factory making wheelbarrows. They've got 60% of the UK market. They're producing 3,000 a week. And to me, it's a great success story. And it really just shows all those other SME businesses that are out there that may be thinking automation isn't right for them. I kind of go, well, if a wheelbarrow manufacturer, which is not considered to be a high-tech business, can successfully use robots automation to improve their productivity, improve their efficiency, there are lots of other businesses that can go through exactly the same route.
Let me just give you another good example at that level. So recently worked with a cheese manufacturer.
Nice, tasty.
Out in Worcestershire, who started as it was two brothers, sourcing local milk to make local cheese, and realised there was a huge market that if they grated that to sell it into the pizza market, so as we can all go into our local supermarkets and buy a bag of grated cheese, that's at a premium price rather than a block. So they were doing, eventually they got up to £1 million. Very manual process, a little bit of automation, but not a huge amount. So they approached we want to grow and help. We can see the demand out there because the pizza makers want more than one cheese and want to be able to mix it or have their own mix. And they could see that as a huge opportunity, just didn't know how to scale up. So we introduced them to a program called Made Smarter, who again walked the line, got under the skill. Those two brothers were really ambitious, and within a year their order book has grown to £5 million, and they deliver it primarily using technology and automation.
Brilliant. So obviously there's a lot of lessons to be learned from these case studies. What do you think the key takeaways are? Maybe how someone listening to this who runs a small to medium enterprise could then try and grow their own productivity.
I think we talked a little bit about culture earlier on, and I think there is a culture in the UK where, there are two great examples of businesses that have had a growth mindset, who've thought about how to adopt technology, how to think differently to solve the problems and challenges that are faced by their business. A lot of SMEs don't necessarily immediately think that way and are slightly put off by, technology. They think it's too big, too costly, too scary, whatever it may be for them. And I think that's the big thing that we as a nation, as an industry, need to change, so that people, you look at other places across the channel in Europe, their mentality is much more, well, you adopt technology, that's how you progress, that's how you drive forward. I mean, we had that mentality here in the 1700s when we needed to industrialise, and it seems like we've fallen behind the rest of the world in that kind of mentality. And it's nice to see stories of these smaller businesses have that kind of drive and ambition again, and we need to do all we can to kind of facilitate that way of thinking and make smaller businesses realise that technology really is available and open to them as a way of developing and growing their business.
Interesting. Have anyone got any comments on culture?
I think there's a couple of key issues in amongst all of that. Firstly, it's not as difficult, it's not as expensive as most businesses believe. So they just need to reach out and gain an understanding. And I think the other element of it is there are lots of vacancies in manufacturing today. It's difficult to find workers. The average age of people in manufacturing is probably over 50. it's difficult to get the youngsters to come into manufacturing. We kind of need to change our mindset. We need to use the technology to fill the vacancies. It's not about taking jobs. This is just about filling vacancies. And then if you start using the technology, it also makes the workplace much more interesting for the younger generation who are brought up on technology. You know, to them, robots is nothing strange. You know, they were brought up with mobile phones and iPads and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Robots is easy.
Absolutely.
And if you have that kind of equipment in your factory, they're more likely to come and work for you.
Except those brought up with iRobot, I don't even remember that went bad. Apart from that generation, everyone else finds them as they're friendly creatures.
I was brought up with it on books rather than film.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But yes,
Absolutely.
you know, they're not friendly creatures in terms of they're not dangerous. They aren't dangerous. They're safe to use, obviously, but it is about it's about using the technology. They are just machines. At the end of the day, they are just machines, and people should be applying them as machines in the same way that they apply other machines.
And the same way that you need CNC machine capacity, so you will go out and buy a lathe without thinking about it, because that's what you've done for the past 50 years. You should be able to see visibly there is a lack of robot capacity. Just go and buy another robot. I guess there are some complications in that you will need an integrator, or you'll need to buy an off-the-shelf system to help it pallet load or something. But there's a huge benefit, and not only the hard productivity benefits, there's softer social benefits of bringing in younger people as well. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, continue.
No, I was just going to say, and most robots are being used for the dirty, the dangerous, the demanding tasks. They're not being used where people are adding value to the product. And this is the key to it today, is use the workforce where they can add value to the product, and use automation where they're performing very repetitive, mundane jobs, and get the best of both.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. I think there's probably more to be said for a more scalable way for people to walk their own line and spot opportunities. How would people spot their own opportunities? In the same way you said a wheelbarrow manufacturer did a lot of their own work. Maybe they had someone in-house who had a lot of that experience from a previous job or something like that. How would SMEs try and spot these opportunities by themselves if they didn't have access to these services that you're offering?
I think often it starts with demand. So where a customer is saying, I don't need 3,000, I need 5,000. And the manager of the company is thinking, how can I do that?
You'll need a phase shift in production.
Hopefully that shift in demand
means
will
a
require
shift in
production, and you can do all sorts of things. You can throw labour at it. That will create lots of other problems. You've got to get them, you've got to train them, you've got to space them. Whereas if you can think about technology, so how we make it, not what we make.
Yeah, interesting.
That spark is important.
And we mentioned it earlier about having more younger people, more newer people into the industry. Having a fresh viewpoint and a fresh set of eyes on a problem often is really important in terms of driving that innovation and that change. And we need to do more as a society and as a nation to encourage people at that younger age to really see that, you know, using technology, they grow up with iPhones, they grow up with iPads, sorry for the product drop, but they grow up with that sort of technology. If they can take that mindset into the workplace, it's just natural for them to adopt the latest technology to solve problems and to provide solutions to the challenges. And the more we can encourage children to realise that a career in engineering and manufacturing is about problem solving, it's about creativity, it's exciting, it's interesting, it's new every day, you're using the newest technology, the better chance we've got of getting more people in there to solve some of these challenges, because they won't need train, they'll learn themselves, they'll inspire themselves, they'll train themselves, and they'll come up with the solutions they need. Okay, they need to be pointed in the right direction with the vehicles that are out there, like the MTC and the FE colleges and universities, but they'll have their own internal motivation to go out and do it themselves.
And there are activities underway. So, you know, one specific one is Vex Robotics that do schools robot competitions, and they start at primary school, go through secondary school, and to me it's very valuable for a couple of reasons. One is it gets the children engaged in robotics, not because we want lots of robot engineers, but we want lots of engineers. So it's getting them engaged at school early. It's teaching them some of the softer skills like project management, teamwork and such like. So it's a great vehicle for that. But probably the most important point is that the demographics of engagement is pretty much 50-50. There are as many girls involved in these competitions as there are boys. And if you go to the national finals are in Telford every year, and there are world finals that you can qualify and go to, but at the national finals, you've got a room full of very motivated, engaged school children, and just the energy in the place is outstanding, and we should be doing more of that, because if we can get them engaged early, we stand a chance of them coming through the system to give us the engineers that we need in our industries.
You're right, Mike. There's an amazing amount of energy. We had on the podcast yesterday Olivia Lane, Jason Tan, and Catherine Ray. I think three of the apprentices that we were talking that were giving talks yesterday. And you're right, the sheer amount of the enthusiasm, the knowledge, the experience, and the vision that these people had in Amazon and in Scorpion Vision and the various companies they've been working in. It was quite inspiring, and I think there's a lot more we can do with that.
Yeah,
I'd agree. There is another competition called Formula One in Schools. Works on the same basis as Mike described, and you get enthused. Project management, yes, you race a car up a track. It's exciting, it's challenging. Project management, you have to raise your own funds, but that challenge just spurs on that inventive thoughts, and also the team leadership, and again, local challenges, national and then international, and how many of those young people then go into manufacturing and training is fantastic.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a kind of just a broader point about education is great, and obviously we need it, but there's something, for me, there was always a little thing missing, which was that motivation. It's what am I solving? If you're solving a problem that's been created by someone just for the sake of it, and they write the answers at the back of the book, doesn't give you that little spark of, oh my God, this person needed this line to run, we made it 10% quicker, means we can have crisps 10% cheaper.
Or whatever.
Something like that. That motivation is so much bigger.
I think it's about making it real. So if you've got to make a robot or a little car and you need to lose a gram of weight to work out how to do that, suddenly becomes a real challenge.
Yeah, especially when those problems are definitely solvable by people in those age groups. They feel that this is within reach, rather than maybe they come into a maths when you go straight to secondary school for the first time. Things can feel quite out of reach and quite abstract. These competitions make engineering problems real and solvable and exciting.
And I think there's another kind of interesting angle to it, in that we're aware that we've not produced enough engineers for many years. The average age is getting older and older. But what it does mean is that there are lots of opportunities for the children that are entering into this workforce, because there's going to be gaps. So they have the opportunity to build their skills and then step into senior roles quite quickly, which is a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, Peter, have you got anything to add about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think signposting people out of schools into appropriate next steps and appropriate careers is so important. And I think the work that's going on with these competitions in schools is a massive part of it. I think there's an element where schools need to be better incentivised to provide the extracurricular activities around STEM subjects. There's plenty around arts, there's plenty around sports, there's not enough around STEM. So encouraging people and giving them an understanding that a career in manufacturing is attainable to them. They might not be the most naturally academic, but there's a route through into an apprenticeship which brings you practical real life experience where you're learning, not necessarily academically, but you're learning, the skills that are required and the mindset that are required to be successful in a career. So, definitely I think that having that alternative route, rather than there's a place for secondary education, there's a place for further education, higher education, it's making sure that the right children end up getting the right route into the right one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably hopefully going to drive the culture change that you were talking about.
Absolutely.
Going to drive hopefully better productivity, meaning that maybe you don't have to go and handhold people down lines. They can companies can spot their own opportunities, hopefully when they get injected with this dynamism, enthusiasm we will have hopefully from younger generations that are on these competitions and taking on these new opportunities that are available, such as apprenticeships at different levels. And so, yeah, that's it. I'll wrap up now. We've not had lunch yet, so I'll let all the guests go for lunch. I'm sure we're all very hungry, but thank you so much for your time. I know it's been quite a big morning for everybody. So, yeah, have you got any closing thoughts?
Fundamentally, going back to the West Midlands, there's a great opportunity in terms of driving the use of the technology and the adoption of the technology forward. even spreading beyond that. You know, we're developing a cluster here to help drive that. We want to replicate that in other parts of the country. There's a great opportunity for the UK to really step up and drive the growth in manufacturing and drive a greater adoption of these technologies. Now's the time to do it. And we call on everybody out there, if they're not already engaged, to reach out and engage with people that are doing it, because this will be the future success and prosperity of the country.
My final thought is, if you're an SME in particular, listening to this and thinking, but where do I go? Google your local council, your local growth hub, university, MTC, connect with one of us on LinkedIn, and we can make that referral and that introduction for you.
Perfect.
From my perspective, I think we just need to continue what we can do in the UK to evolve and change the way we think and change our mindset, so that manufacturing and engineering is seen as being the hugely important part it is within the economy, and that automation and technology is actually central to making the most of that opportunity and to bringing manufacturing back to its rightful place within the British economy.
Yeah, very important thoughts there. Thank you very much, Peter, Rachel, and Mike. That's been the MTD CNC podcast live here at the FANUC Open House on the last day. It's Thursday. Make sure to tune in to MTD CNC for more engineering videos. We'll be covering more of the Open House later.